even if you all fight together. So what? The blood fiend devil lord let out a devilish roar. A giant eye suddenly appeared in his blood sun. The eye popped open like an ancient beast had been awoken. After that, endless chains shot out of the blood sun, wrapping around the blood fiend devil lord and then spreading in every direction. Not good. Gu Yang and the others let out startled cries. That energy was not something a human could fight against. Those chains contained the energy of an entire world. Boom. Their attacks were blasted apart, and every one of them coughed up blood. Blood sun illuminates the world, blood dragons devour the heavens. The blood fiend devil lord's blood chi ignited, and his power erupted like a volcano. The chains transformed into blood dragons that attacked Meng Qi and the others. Taking advantage of when they were injured, he intended to wipe them all out. Dragon blood cross slash. Just as the dragons flew out, Guoran slashed his sabers. Dragon roars resounded throughout the world. This was the concentrated power of all the dragon blood warriors. A giant cross wreaked havoc through the void as it shot toward the blood fiend devil lord. Fragments of space-time flew through the air. The blood fiend devil lord's expression changed. He had actually forgotten about Guoran. This fellow he had viewed as insignificant was unleashing such a powerful attack at this critical moment. Right now, his chains had only just scattered, and he didn't have time to pull them back for offense. Hence, his energy poured into the golden halberd. Boom. With no other choice, the blood fiend devil lord was forced to receive Guoran's attack. Huge waves erupted in the void, spreading throughout the entire battlefield. Guoran's body trembled, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. As for the blood fiend devil lord, he was forced back several steps, every step causing the land to collapse. In the end, he couldn't stop himself from spitting out a mouthful of blood. He was injured. Even his blood sun dimmed slightly, and the eye within it vanished. Just as he spat out blood, a dagger silently appeared behind him, stabbing toward his heart. Courting death, the blood fiend devil lord roared furiously. The runes on his body suddenly flew out. Dong Mingyu's figure was revealed, and she was sent flying by those runes. An unhealthy rosiness appeared on her face just before she vanished once more. Just at this moment, the blood dragons that the blood fiend devil lord had sent out were met by endless willow branches. Explosions rang out as the willow branches exploded along with the blood dragons. The towering willow instantly became bare. The stars were fully revealed as Lu Ruyan used up every last one of her branches to block the blood dragons, leaving only a trunk. Meng Qi and the others were horrified. Lu Ruyan had been forced to use up all of her branches to block that attack. Without Lu Ruyan, they probably wouldn't have survived it. Count yourselves lucky this time. The next time I step onto the martial heaven continent will be a bloody baptism for your human race. The blood fiend devil lord sneered and retreated back into the yin-yang world. The martial heaven continent's experts were silent. This blood fiend devil lord was absolutely terrifying. There was no way to match him. The Dragon Blood Legion was already so powerful, and yet their strongest experts were unable to beat him. His arrival cast a shadow on their hearts. He was so powerful that it invoked despair. He had yet to even set foot into the heaven-merging realm. Once he did, would there be anyone who could stop him? You should count yourself lucky. If our boss was here, you wouldn't be leaving alive, sneered Guoran, refusing to come out as the weaker party. Oof, Longchen? I'll kill him next time. You small fry should scram. You should celebrate getting to keep your worthless lives for now, snorted the blood fiend devil lord. With a quiver from his blood sun, the 7 sovereign sprouts hastily appeared behind him, and they all vanished. The blood race's experts also left, but they didn't forget to say such mocking and intimidating words to the martial heaven continent's side before leaving. How regretful. We were lacking one supreme expert. If Long Chen was here, or maybe Mo Nian, he wouldn't be able to leave. Dong Mingyu appeared once more, her face pale. Guoran's Dragonblood Cross slash drained most of his energy and gave him quite the injury. He truly is powerful. I didn't get to fully activate my God Curse energy before being forced back by him, or he'd be dead. He might look powerful, but he only left because he ran out of energy. If Long Chen or Emon Yen was here stopping him, we would have had a high chance of killing him. Regretfully, Wild is still sleeping. If he was here as well, we might have succeeded. Dong Mingyu was also injured, but she felt regretful that they hadn't killed him. They had just been the slightest bit away from it. Meng Qi smiled comfortingly and wiped some blood off of Dong Mingyu's face. That blood belonged to the Blood Fiend Devil Lord. The Blood Fiend Devil Lord has an entire world's karmic luck concentrated within him, so we can't rely on luck to kill him. He belongs to Long Chen, not us. You don't have to feel conflicted about it. Isn't it better to leave him to Long Chen? That's right, boss will definitely knock his teeth out, said Guoran confidently. If he weren't so slippery, there would be no need for Long Chen. I would have exhausted him to death myself, said Lu Ruyan stubbornly. Meng Qi and Chu Yao exchanged a smile. Lu Ruyan was particularly stubborn when it came to Long Chen. Lu Ruyan was truly powerful. If the Blood Fiend Devil Lord had continued fighting, then considering her undying body, she really might have been able to defeat him. However, defeating him was a different concept from killing him. He wouldn't be so foolish as to continue fighting here when he couldn't win. Sister Ruyan's power truly is amazing. We got to witness the undying race's power. You were our main force this time, said Meng Qi. That's true. Sister Ruyan was our protector this time. You're definitely much more reliable than Long Chen, praised Tang Wan. As expected, Lu Ruyan's expression finally softened slightly. She had a suppressed smile like she didn't want to smile but couldn't help it, and it gave a much warmer feeling considering how icy she was. Why didn't any peak experts come? Only now did Guoran realize that not one person on the level of Emon Yen, Nangong Zhu, Beiteng Rushuang, Hu Feng, or Yun Tian had come despite the huge disturbance. Do you think everyone is so bored? Most people are still in seclusion in preparation for the heaven-merging realm. The Alliance had even said that we must be prepared for this breakthrough, said Meng Qi. The Dragonblood Legion had only managed to fully prepare thanks to the resources provided by Long Chen. They had already reached the peak of Nether Passage. Many experts were busy making preparations for a perfect breakthrough. However, the Dragonblood Legion didn't need to have that thought. That was because every time they underwent seclusion, there was always Long Chen controlling it. They had always had a 100% success rate at tribulation, so they had no need to worry about that. It was only when Meng Qi mentioned it that they recalled not everyone was like them, treating tribulations as a simple affair. After all, even Empyreans could fail a tribulation. As soon as that danger appeared, there would be nothing else that they could do. That was why they made so many preparations beforehand. They weren't like them. How regretful. If more of them had come, the Blood Fiend Devil Lord wouldn't have been able to escape so easily. He would need to leave a bit behind at least, said Guoran. His unprecedented show-off act had been disturbed by the Blood Fiend Devil Lord. He had become the main character, while Guoran was reduced to a secondary character, irritating him. I'm so stupid. Guoran suddenly slapped his leg. What is it? Asked Gu Yang. It's nothing. I should have invited some of the peak experts in advance, said Guoran. In truth, that wasn't what he was thinking. He had just recalled how Long Chen had said that the blood race was weak to poison. Perhaps he could have used some of his mechanisms to instantly poison the Blood Fiend Devil Lord, then they might have been able to deal a serious blow to him. In his weakened state, they would have had a chance to kill him. However, he couldn't say that, or he would be looked down on for forgetting such an important detail. It was better to keep this failure to himself. Lingshan, the Blood Fiend Devil Lord has appeared. There's no need to have so many experts standing guard here, said Meng Qi. Yi Lingshan nodded. If it weren't for the Dragonblood Legion being here, the Blood Fiend Devil Lord could have wiped out all the defenders all by himself. However, it also wasn't possible to leave such an important defensive point unguarded. Leave a smaller number of people here as a formality more than anything else. The Blood Race won't be launching any large-scale attacks anytime soon. Although the Blood Fiend Devil Lord has his blood son, he can't stay in the Martial Heaven continent for long. Furthermore, with his status, he won't be taking action against so few people, said Guoran. Yi Lingshan thought about it and nodded. Hence, she withdrew 80% of the people guarding this place. Just as Yi Lingshan was arranging this, within a deep ravine of the Yin-Yang world, the blood fiend Devil Lord suddenly coughed up 3 mouthfuls of blood, causing his 7 sovereign sprouts to jump in shock. Devil Lord. Seeing the Devil Lord coughing up some blood, the 7 sovereign sprouts cried out in shock. The Devil Lord was an unrivaled existence in their minds, but he had actually been injured. At this moment, the blood that he spat out instantly froze, and a terrifying ice chi somehow covered the valley in ice, stunning the 7 sovereign sprouts. That woman's sword is a world-divine item. Although she can't use its full power, my own energy automatically provoked a trace of its energy. If it weren't for that world-divine item, they would have all died, said the blood fiend Devil Lord darkly. Devil Lord, your back is injured, said one of the sovereign sprouts. There was a wound on his back that was still bleeding. These people were his followers, and they knew just how terrifying he was. However, they had never seen him injured before. Right now, black blood was constantly flowing out of that wound, and it emitted a dense, sinister aura. It was that assassin girl's dagger. It contains a god's curse, so be careful around her. If you get stabbed, your essence blood will bleed out in an instant. However, that god is no big figure to be feared. It is that ice sword that is troublesome. Tell everyone not to rashly make any moves. Once the Martial Heaven continent is fully infected by our world's aura, we will settle things with the human race, said the blood fiend Devil Lord. Yes. Devil Lord isn't just waiting bad for our morale? Asked one of them. The blood fiend Devil Lord snorted. That thinking of yours is very foolish. Do you know why I killed those old fellows? It's because they were just as stupid. Giving a show of power to the Martial Heaven continent is meaningless. The continent has reached the end of its lifespan, and they are at their wits' end. Those old fellows of the Martial Heaven continent are definitely aware of this. Moreover, the most frightening thing about the human race is their unity. A powerful enemy will only cause them to band together. Unless you have enough power to cause absolute despair, there's no point in provoking them. Those old fellows were foolish to that extent. If it weren't for their bloodlines, I'd even suspect that they were spies from the human race trying to raise the human race's morale. But I didn't think that you are also that stupid. If you weren't my guard, I'd kill you as well. Even after following me for so many years, you haven't grown a brain. That sovereign sprout turned pale with terror. After that, he hastily knelt down and kowtowed in apology. The other guards were silent as well. Is there any movement from the wolf god's egg? Asked the blood fiend Devil Lord. Reporting to the Devil Lord, the wolf god's egg is exceptionally active at the moment. The ancestral runes are being absorbed. Therefore, it is most likely receiving the inheritance and will quickly break out of its shell, reported one of the sovereign sprouts. But I have high expectations for a wolf god incubated for over 100,000 years. The blood fiend Devil Lord smiled. He suddenly rose. My source energy was damaged, and I need to recover. During my absence, go find another sovereign sprout. After Shueka died, a new sovereign sprout will be born. Find him. Yes. All the sovereign sprouts nodded. Looking content, the blood fiend Devil Lord vanished with a quiver of his blood sun. After that, the sovereign sprouts quickly got to work. Deep within the Yin-Yang world, within a deep valley surrounded by mountains, a giant egg that was thrumming with blood chi could be seen. The void around it was filled with cracks and flying runes. Wild lightning, wind blades, and burning flames crackled around it. The shell of the egg had reached a semi-transparent state. From the outside, it was vaguely possible to see a curled-up, snow-white figure. A scarlet ball of light on its forehead was pulsing like fire. As it slumbered within the egg, the runes outside were absorbing the world's energy for it. The runic chains within the egg were sending it an unending current of energy. Despite still being asleep, with every breath it took, the laws of heaven and earth moved with it. It was as if it was a slumbering god who could bring forth destruction upon worlds once it awoke. At this moment, the news of the Dragonblood Legion's battle against the blood fiend Devil Lord instantly spread throughout the Martial Heaven continent. All the main characters of the Dragonblood Legion had appeared other than Long Chen, but they still couldn't stop the blood fiend Devil Lord from retreating. Because of this, he instantly became the continent's nightmare. Even the people's confidence in Long Chen was shaken by the blood fiend Devil Lord. That was just how powerful he was. The blood fiend Devil Lord could charge onto the continent and fight the top experts of the Dragonblood Legion. He was then able to safely retreat. Since this was the case, there was no way to describe just how terrifying he was. In comparison, Long Chen had been forced to rely on Taoist Heavenly Feather's protection when he had entered the Yin-Yang world. Just that one bit of fact made quite a few people assume that Long Chen was not a match for the blood fiend Devil Lord. Most importantly, the seal on Devil Spirit Mountain was slowly fading, and the devil chi inside was starting to flow onto the continent as well. The divine families had vanished without a word. It was impossible to tell what they were thinking. Perhaps Long Chen had infuriated them and they did not wish to interfere in the matters of the Martial Heaven continent any longer. In any case, the people of the Martial Heaven continent felt very anxious. Despite that, Long Chen did not show himself. Boom! In the rear mountains of the heaven-splitting battle sect, everything had been turned into a desert of sand and gravel. How many times have I told you, you have to control your anger. You can only unleash your power once it stabilizes, or if you only seek greater power, it will cause damage to your own body. When the wounds that you cannot sense slowly accumulate over time, you'll be a cripple before you even reach 100 years old. Roared the old man until his throat felt hoarse. It was unknown how many times he had shouted. Within the flying sand and dust was Long Chen, who was wielding Evil Moon. He was facing the old man. In the distance, Bao Buping, Chang Hao, and the 7 bosses were lying in the sand, too tired to move. Even as the wind half buried them with sand, they didn't twitch. They were all too exhausted as the training with the old man had been hellish. They felt like their bodies would simply fall apart at any moment. Of them all, only Long Chen was still standing. Even the old man was panting like an old bull. Long Chen felt a bit helpless. I really can't. Just let me do it like this. I have a different cultivation technique, so I can't reach that balance. If I get some hidden wounds, then fine. I have my own ways to recover. I feel like I've gotten a sense of the 9th form of Split the Heavens. My path is different than yours, so don't make things hard on me. Long Chen cultivated the 9-star Hegemon body art, the most domineering and direct cultivation technique. Although the Battle God Sacred Canon was similar to it, there was a trace of softness within it, and that was the crux for the 9th form of Split the Heavens. It was what prevented a giant backlash from killing the user. As for the 9-star Hegemon body art, it lacked any such softness. Every attack was an all-out attack. After a long time, even a body of metal would break apart from such a thing. As an example, whether a stonemason was using a wooden or metal hammer, there had to be some flexibility, some elasticity. This softness was what allowed the hammer to break stone over and over again. Without that softness, every attack would damage oneself, which meant the more power that Long Chen used, the greater the backlash. That was not how the 9th form of Split the Heavens should be used, and that was why the old man was angry and anxious. How can a man simply accept such drivel? Little Bao, get over here and demonstrate. I refuse to believe that I can't teach you this, shouted the old man. Boss Bao's body twitched in the sand. He raised his head, almost crying. Old man, spare us. It's been 3 days. Can you at least let us stay alive and keep breathing? In order to teach Long Chen the softness, not only had Long Chen been forced to endure the old man's harsh teachings, but Boss Bao and the others had become teaching instruments, with the old man constantly using them to get Long Chen to learn. As a result, Boss Bao and the others had fallen into an endless hell. Every time they used the 9th form of Split the Heavens, they exhausted themselves. Even after they had all demonstrated once, Long Chen hadn't learned anything. As for the old man, he refused to give up. Stop wasting words. Get up. If an old man like me can stay standing, aren't you embarrassed to be lying down? Demanded the old man. You have the heaven-splitting blade. You're not even using 5% of the energy we're using. Aren't you embarrassed to say such a thing? If you want, give me the heaven-splitting blade and we'll see who is too tired to stand. Raged Boss Bao. Ooh, you're looking for a beating, hmm? The old man was at a loss for words. It truly was the heaven-splitting blade that allowed him to stay standing so easily. Don't waste the effort. Long Chen cannot use this kind of soft energy because his 9-star hegemon body art will not allow any sense of retreat. Finally, Evil Moon spoke up again. Impossible. Once reaching the limit of one extreme, the only direction is to go back. There are no absolutes in this world. Softness and hardness intertwine. Without softness, there is no hardness, said the old man, refusing to believe this. The 9-star hegemon body art is precisely like that. If Long Chen tries to find a roundabout way because he's afraid of being injured, it will be a betrayal to the essence of the 9-star hegemon body art. Even Long Chen's character has been affected by that cultivation technique to this extent. Are you not clear on that? Don't waste time, said Evil Moon indifferently. Reporting to Sect Master, the Alliance head has come and wishes to speak to you. She says that there's something important to discuss. Just at this moment, a disciple of the heaven-splitting battle sect ran over. Hearing that it was the Alliance head, Boss Bao and the others immediately felt like winter had passed and spring had come. Their salvation was at hand. The old man was forced to stop and bring everyone back to the heaven-splitting battle sect, whereupon they saw Chu Jianying had come with Emon Yen. Emon Yen, aren't you supposed to be in seclusion? Why are you here? Asked Long Chen. Emon Yen's expression was odd. He worked his jaw a few times before finally sighing, "It's hard to explain in a few words." Did you cause some calamity again? Asked Long Chen curiously. You really are a good pair. You guessed it in one go. This little bastard actually snuck his way into the corrupt god cemetery. Chu Jianying glared at Emon Yen. Damn, how could you do such a thing? What kind of time is it for this nonsense? Raged Long Chen. Well, Emon Yen was a bit embarrassed. Don't give me some bullshit excuses. The martial heaven continent is in crisis. Devil Spirit Mountain and the Yin-Yang world can invade at any moment. Scolded Long Chen. Chu Jianying nodded at this. Although Long Chen was mischievous, he knew about the big picture at important times. At such a time, you actually went grave robbing in the corrupt god cemetery by yourself? Why didn't you call me? Didn't we discuss that already? Raged Long Chen. I'll beat you both. Just as she thought that Long Chen was actually somewhat reliable, he took a sudden turn. What happened? Asked the old man quickly, pulling Chu Jianying to his side. Let him tell it. Chu Jianying glared at Emon Yen. Emon Yen obediently explained. In truth, Long Chen had wrongly accused him. Emon Yen truly had come to look for Long Chen, but since Long Chen was in the heaven-splitting battle sect, it was clear that he was training in the 9th form of Split the Heavens. So after realizing what Long Chen was doing, Emon Yen decided against disturbing him. After that, he snuck into the corrupt god cemetery by himself. With his years of experience, the corrupt path's restrictions were unable to stop him. He entered the inner cemetery without anyone the wiser. In the end, he reached the same place that Long Chen had reached back then. However, Emon Yen didn't go look at the corrupt emperor guarding this place. Instead, he stealthily opened one of the stone coffins, only to find that it was empty. Most shocking of all, based on his experience, the coffin had only been opened recently. At that time, he even suspected that someone had robbed this place before him, but then thinking about it, he didn't think it was very likely. Perhaps they had been moved by the corrupt path. Upon closer examination, he found an underground passageway. On the other side of it was a world of darkness. It was an ancient city filled with ghostly qi. The aura of rot and decay was everywhere. That aura alone was toxic. The toxicity was low enough that Emon Yen was able to endure it. Hence, he snuck inside, finding countless bones. But when he reached the inner city, he saw countless resentful spirits. There were humans, beasts, and all kinds of races. They were corpses, but their withered eyes still contained a terrifying light. They possessed their own consciousness. However, after becoming resentful spirits, they didn't attack each other. They had sharp senses, and Emon Yen was almost noticed by them several times. It was at this moment that Emon realized that he had entered the most mysterious of the continent's 7 danger zones, Resentful Death City. The entrance was within the corrupt god cemetery. Emon carefully scouted the city, but it was so big that it was hard to believe. The feeling that Emon got was that the city was no smaller than the Central Plains. The closer he got to the heart of the city, the stronger the auras of the resentful spirits. At first, there was only the occasional existence that had reached the heaven-merging realm. But then he saw more and more of them. Emon was truly terrified upon realizing this. There were countless resentful spirits sitting here, silent. Sometimes they would sense him and rise, forcing him to hide. At one moment, he was surrounded by dozens of resentful spirits that had reached the heaven-merging realm. If he was noticed, there was no way he would be able to leave alive. He might even be joining their ranks if he was killed here. Throughout the city, he also noticed quite a few disciples wearing robes of the divine families that had also become resentful spirits. The legends had to be true. Those that died here would be transformed into resentful spirits, essentially puppets without their own will. Emon thought about fleeing several times due to the danger, but it had been difficult enough to get to this point. If he didn't get a look at the heart of the city, it would be a waste. Emon then bravely entered deeper. However, he was disappointed to see that the inner gates were closed shut. He didn't dare to use his spiritual yuan to open them, or he would disturb the resentful spirits. The majority of the resentful spirits in this city had reached the heaven-merging realm, some with auras so powerful that he didn't dare to get close to them. Just their auras alone were enough to make his soul feel a stabbing pain. Those resentful spirits had surpassed his understanding. They might not just be in the heaven-merging realm. Any one of them could destroy him with a wave of their hand. After scouting the city, he found an ancient python whose body was badly corroded. Moreover, it wasn't a resentful spirit but a true corpse. It had crawled up the wall, so Emon carefully climbed up its back. When he reached the top of the walls, he almost let out a muffled cry. He saw thousands of resentful spirits bound by chains, and at the end of those chains was an altar with coffins lying on it. At the center of those coffins sat a person, and it was this person that made Emon almost shout. It was the corrupt path's Yiming. He was seated cross-legged, and the auras of the resentful spirits swirled around him. He seemed to be cultivating. Just as Emon saw him, Yiming's eyes suddenly opened. As a result, Emon shot an arrow without a second thought, and without looking to see if it landed, he fled. The arrow was sucked into a twisting void when it was a few meters away from Yiming, devoured by some mysterious energy. Because of all the commotions, all the resentful spirits in the city were awoken, and they charged at Emon. At that moment, Emon had fled in the earth-splitting divine shuttle. He dug through the earth, but he was immediately locked onto by a terrifying aura and was dragged out of the ground. Just as Emon thought that he was definitely dead, a sovereign seal appeared in the sky. However, just as it appeared, it exploded, transforming into divine runes that illuminated the city. Those resentful spirits cried out, terrified of the light. Using this chance, Emon immediately fled. However, those runes quickly dimmed, and the resentful spirits once more chased after him. At this time, Emon finally managed to reach the corrupt god cemetery. However, those resentful spirits had no intention of letting him off so easily. The passageway behind him almost blew apart as they followed him into the corrupt god cemetery. Fortunately, upon entering the corrupt god cemetery, their speed was impacted. They seemed suppressed and their speed dropped. Delighted by this, Emon fled out of the corrupt god cemetery. Although a giant mass of resentful spirits followed, as soon as they left the corrupt god cemetery, they began to scream and burn, white smoke coming from their bodies. Under those circumstances, they quickly returned to the corrupt god cemetery. Some were too slow and didn't manage to retreat, so they were turned to dust. Looking at this, Emon sighed with relief, but before long his heart tightened once more. The entrance to the corrupt god cemetery was no longer silent. A corrosive aura was pouring out of it and infecting the martial heaven continent, slowly withering the trees and vegetation in the surroundings. After that, Black chi began to spread in that space along with some resentful spirits, which then roared at Emon. Emon immediately realized that he had inadvertently opened the gates to resentful Death City. Its aura was now leaking onto the martial heaven continent. Once it infected the continent, these resentful spirits would also be able to run rampant everywhere. Thinking of that, Emon felt a chill and ran over to Chu Jianying. After explaining, she immediately brought Emon to Long Chen. This matter was too big. This can't be blamed on Emon. It's a good thing to have this exposed as early as possible. The corrupt path has had control over resentful Death City for all this time. That's clearly a scheme, and Yi Ming is very likely the key to activating it. Perhaps this is why Yun Tian discarded everything else and only focused on killing Yi Ming, said Long Chen. Long Chen wasn't saying this just to stand up for Emon. Although he hadn't gone to resentful Death City, Chu Jianying had told him that there were only 2 entrances to it. One lay with the divine families, while one lay with the corrupt path. As for the divine family's entrance, it only gave them access to the outer regions. The fact that Emon appeared right inside the city when he came from the corrupt path's entrance already showed the problem. As for why the corrupt path had dragged the inner coffins of the corrupt god cemetery into resentful Death City, that was a hair-raising question. In any case, the corrupt path had some secret when it came to resentful Death City, and Emon had taken the first step to expose it. Before this, Chu Jianying was afraid that the corrupt path would open the gates of resentful Death City and unleash the resentful spirits on the continent. Now it seemed that the corrupt path's goal was even worse. They might already be able to control all of resentful Death City. Why would there be a sovereign seal in resentful Death City? Asked the old man after a long moment of silence. This was truly inexplicable. Was it some other sovereign? The sovereign's methods are beyond comprehension. What will come eventually. Long Chen turned to Emon with a mischievous smile. Great sage Emon, I wonder if you've made any gains on your archaeological trip this time? Don't you think you should share? A bandit never leaves empty-handed. Emon smiled, feeling pleased with himself. The old man and Chu Jianying stared in dumbfounded silence as Emon took out a bag and emptied it. The two of them couldn't believe their eyes. The bag Emon was holding was a cosmos bag. From it he took out one large object after another. The crystal core of a 13th rank magical beast, the scarlet dragon rhinoceros. This crystal bone. Its rune contains a terrifying water energy. Is it from the primordial Kuan race? This sword, it's so sharp. This forging method has long since been lost. I want it. Seeing the various treasures, Chu Jianying was astonished. There were crystal cores, crystal bones, weapons, books, and all kinds of treasures of incalculable value. You can pick from these. Just leave me some so I can equip the disciples of Mo Gate, said Emon magnanimously. Long Chen, what are you looking at me like that for? Demanded Emon. Long Chen's smile, which was not a smile, made him feel a bit guilty. Don't bring out these useless things. The Alliance head has helped you out, and you bring out this broken sword for her? Aren't you embarrassed? Said Long Chen disdainfully. Chu Jianying was startled and then looked at Emon. With no way around this, Emon clapped his head and feigned sudden realization. That's right. If you didn't remind me, I would have forgotten. I specifically picked out a treasure for you, Alliance head. I'm just too forgetful. Emon then offered up an ancient sword with both hands to Chu Jianying. There was quite a bit of dust and rust on this sword, and it looked like it was breaking down. Despite that, a sharp aura came from it, and even through its sheath, they could sense the murderous aura that condensed from it, having killed countless powerful life forms. After that, Chu Jianying carefully received the sword and looked at the old man. Only when the old man nodded did Chu Jianying finally begin to unsheath it. When just 3 inches of the blade was revealed, a sharp aura caused the palace that they were in to quiver, and black threads appeared around the blade. Those threads were the sword's sharpness slicing the void. Although they were both prepared, Chu Jianying and the old man still jumped in shock. This sword was absolutely terrifying. Autumn water. The sword slowly calmed down, allowing them to see the words on it. After that, Chu Jianying and the old man let out a startled cry together. The 9 Sword sect's founding ancestor, Li Qiushui's personally forged weapon, the Autumn Water Divine Sword. Mo Nian asked, "Is this sword very famous?" Chu Jianying solemnly said, "Very much so." Senior Li Qiushui was a behemoth of the sword Dao who once followed Sovereign Ziyang. When the Dark Era fell upon that generation, Li Qiushui led her disciples to slaughter countless invaders. However, it is said that she and her disciples were trapped in an evil formation and perished. After hearing that news, without exception, all her disciples threw themselves into the battlefield. In the end, although the martial heaven continent won, not a single member of the 9 Sword sect survived, and a vast legacy was lost just like that. Their actions shook the entire world, and afterwards Sovereign Ziyang led a 3-month memorial for the 9 Sword sect. It can be said that Senior Qiushui is a model example for us, so seeing her sword is extremely moving. Chu Jianying then placed the Autumn Water Divine Sword at the top of the palace and kowtowed to it, followed by the old man. They were filled with reverence for this righteous and heroic senior. The people in their generation grew up hearing stories of her. At this moment, Chu Jianying's eyes were even red from emotion. Seeing their reaction, Mo Nian didn't quite know what to do. Should he kneel as well or not? However, when he saw Long Chen just standing there, he decided to just follow his act. In the end, Chu Jianying didn't scold them as their lives were just different. They didn't know as much as her about the history and couldn't fathom the feelings of the older generation. Long Chen, this Autumn Water Divine Sword is a priceless weapon. Although it can't compare to the 5 supreme divine items, below those 5, not many divine items can endure a single attack from it. You should give it to Yu Zifeng. Like that, this sword would land in the right hands. After kowtowing, Chu Jianying reverently passed the Autumn Water Divine Sword to Long Chen. Long Chen shook his head. Zifeng does not rely on the sharpness of his sword to win. His path is different from other sword cultivators. Yu Zifeng had always declined when Long Chen offered to find him a powerful divine sword. He said that his destined sword had yet to appear. Perhaps his pursuit for that destined sword was part of his cultivation path. That was why Yu Zifeng always used ordinary swords. In addition, sometimes swords would automatically leap into his hands, and only then would he replace his old one. Because of this peculiarity, although this Autumn Water Divine Sword was a priceless treasure, Long Chen was sure that Yu Zifeng wouldn't want it. Alright, then I'll give it to Ling Shan. She will carry out Senior Qiushui's will. Chu Jianying respectfully put away the Autumn Water Divine Sword and then turned to Mo Nian. "Where did you find this Autumn Water Divine Sword?" It was in a pile of bones near the core of the city. There was one particular skeleton seated cross-legged with this sword resting on its knees. I didn't know that it was Senior Li Qiushui, but when I took the sword, her corpse turned to dust, said Mo Nian awkwardly. He didn't know if Chu Jianying would curse him for blaspheming a senior. Chu Jianying nodded. She sighed. Senior had her own spirit, and she entrusted her sword to you. Was Senior Li Qiushui killed because of resentful Death City? Asked the old man suddenly. Chu Jianying's expression changed. The story said that Li Qiushui was surrounded by invaders and fell into one of their domains before vanishing. But Mo Nian had found her in resentful Death City. There are definitely some secrets in resentful Death City. Mo Nian only survived thanks to the remnant sovereign seal. If we think about it, for a sovereign to seal resentful Death City, he must have had his reasons. If Senior Qiushui was Sovereign Ziyang's follower and her corpse was found in resentful Death City, it implies that she was trapped and died there. Then looking at it from another angle, doesn't it mean that there was no sovereign seal over resentful Death City when she died? If that's the case, then it's clear who left the sovereign seal, said Long Chen. You mean it was left by Sovereign Ziyang? Chu Jianying and the old man were startled. This analysis didn't have much to base itself on, but it was reasonable. If we want proof, it's simple. Mo Nian, take out a few hundred treasures. We can investigate what part of history they're from, said Long Chen. Chu Jianying and the old man stared at Mo Nian in shock. After that, Mo Nian cursed Long Chen. That's easy for you to say. Where am I supposed to get a few hundred of them? Resentful Death City is filled with terrifying resentful spirits. Why don't you steal a few hundred for us to take a look at? I certainly can't do it. But you are a grandmaster archaeologist, a pioneer of excavating the lost culture of the Martial Heaven continent. Come now, don't be low-key. Show us your abilities. Long Chen smiled wickedly. He truly understood Emo Nyen. Count yourself vicious. Emo Nyen glared at Long Chen and waved his hand. After that, a dozen weapons clattered to the ground, and the palace rumbled, with space twisting. Damn! The old man gasped. The formless wheel, the heavenly spirit parasol, the ghost king shield, the heaven-piercing hegemon spear. Chu Jianying examined the divine items one by one, her heart pounding. These were all famous existences in the Martial Heaven continent's history. They and their masters had left behind countless legends. Besides, the owners of these weapons had all been experts in the same generation as Sovereign Ziyang. They were famous existences that had stood at the apex of the continent at that time. This heavenly spirit parasol is a treasure of the Nangong family. Back then their family? Well, it's not for me to say. You should return it to the Nangong family later. Chu Jianying sighed when she saw the heavenly spirit parasol. These experts were truly from the same generation as Sovereign Ziyang. Then Long Chen's theory that the sovereign seal was left by him is likely. But if Sovereign Ziyang sealed Resentful Death City, why is it that no one from the Martial Heaven continent knew of it? Furthermore, the divine families were capable of entering Resentful Death City, but they didn't say anything either. The old man's expression sank. He smelled a scheme. We've never viewed Resentful Death City as a powerful enemy, only treating it as the final trump card of the corrupt path. It seems that we were wrong. Resentful Death City definitely poses a serious threat to the Martial Heaven continent, or the Sovereign wouldn't have sealed it. But it really is incomprehensible why the Sovereign didn't leave any warning, said Chu Jianying. Perhaps Taoist Heavenly Feather or the High Priest knows something. Maybe we should ask them? Suggested the old man. Long Chen shook his head. There's no need. They know many things, but if they could say any, they wouldn't conceal it. So asking them about things that they can't say is meaningless. If the Sovereign didn't mention it, then doesn't that have huge implications? Even if the High Priest did know, he definitely wouldn't dare to say it. The Martial Heaven continent is like a riddle slowly being solved by our generation. The corrupt path, the divine families, and even Pill Valley are acting mysteriously. They are scheming something, and only we are still blind. But I refuse to believe that the 5 sovereigns were just going to let us be destroyed without leaving any clues. Now, the Martial Heaven continent lies on the brink of destruction. Whether or not we win is something I feel like is up to Emo Nyen. Me? What the fuck, what are you looking at me for? Demanded Emo Nyen. Hee, it depends on whether or not you can take out some more divine items to equip our side, chortled Long Chen. Bastard, there's no more, raged Emo Nyen. I don't believe you. Long Chen looked at Emo Nyen disdainfully. At the very least, there is one object that you haven't taken out. Where is the Beitang family's weapon? If you take it for yourself, do you think Beitang Rushuang will let you off? Emo Nyen then tossed out a few more divine items and directly stormed off. Amongst those new divine items was an ancient multicolored bow. Seeing Emo Nyen toss over so many divine items, Chu Jianying felt bad. Long Chen, Emo Nyen risked his life to enter Resentful Death City and brought back these treasures with his own power. Don't you think it's going overboard to take them all? Overboard? No, you don't know Emo Nyen. He definitely hasn't taken out even half of the things he got, said Long Chen. Long Chen truly understood Emo Nyen. Although he was generous in other areas, he was a stingy miser when it came to the profits of his grave robbing. Taking those from him was like cutting his flesh. Why did Long Chen know? It was because Emo Nyen had once shown Long Chen his treasure room, a place that not even Lu Zongying knew of. Inside, there were millions of museum pieces he had collected. They were the results of Emo Nyen's grave robbing over the years, and he had detailed classifications of them, including their uses, age, etc. Long Chen had even spotted something that looked like a woman's undergarment. In any case, this fellow was very unwilling to take out the results of his grave robbing. He liked to conceal them and keep them for himself, calling it by the glorified name of archaeology and protecting the treasures of the continent's ancestral figures. The reason Long Chen had repeatedly squeezed Mo Nian of his treasures just now was because it would be a waste to conceal such priceless treasures. However, now that Mo Nian had spat out so many terrifying divine items, Long Chen felt confident that Mo Nian knew how serious their predicament was. He wouldn't conceal such terrifying divine items. Whether he left them to the Martial Heaven Alliance or to Mo Gate's disciples, it was all the same. This is truly stunning. So many experts died in resentful Death City. The old man looked at those divine items in disbelief. These divine items were all famous existences, and their original masters were experts that had stood at the peak of the continent. Thinking of how they had all died in resentful Death City, he was alarmed. Just what kind of secret was hiding in resentful Death City? The Nangong and Beitang families' divine items naturally must be returned to them. The Dongfang family's Scarlet Tomb saber should be left to a saber master. As for the Shimen family's dragon claw, Chu Jianing looked at Long Chen. The Shimen family had been enemies with Long Chen at the start, but later, perhaps due to their conscience or because they couldn't stop Long Chen, they had decided to join the neutral side. Even after multiple battles, the Shimen family had chosen to remain neutral. However, there were times that they had spoken up for the side of the Martial Heaven continent. In the Star-Field Divine World, Shimen Tianxiong had cursed Dongfang Yuyang's actions. Thus, the Shimen family could not be said to be the Martial Heaven Alliance's enemy. You can do whatever you want. Don't look at me. I'm not good at politics, said Long Chen. Long Chen nodded. As his cultivation base grew, Chu Jianing was less strict with him. It was no longer like she was the parent scolding a child. However, with this respect came distance as well. It was the old man and Chu Jianing who were the same from the start. There was cursing and fighting, but in Long Chen's view, this showed that they were actually closer. Perhaps this was why the old man would never be suited to being in command. Chu Jianing nodded and respectfully put away the divine items. Since Mo Nian didn't know their history, then fine. But Chu Jianing had grown up with stories of these legendary figures. These seniors had spilled their blood for the Martial Heaven continent, so they had to be treated respectfully. After putting away the divine items, Chu Jianing was on the move to send them to the right people when she recalled the other matter. She told Long Chen about the matter of the Blood Fiend Devil Lord. The Blood Fiend Devil Lord? Long Chen was startled. Even sovereign sprouts were willing to be his guards, and all the experts of the Dragonblood Legion were unable to stop him from leaving? This person was definitely shockingly powerful. Long Chen knew that the current Dragonblood Legion was extremely powerful, but he hadn't expected them to draw out such a terrifying existence. He is most likely the son of the world. To be more precise, he has started walking the path of becoming a sovereign. He is most definitely the sovereign of his generation. As for the Martial Heaven continent, we have some sovereign sprouts, but not one person has shown signs of being the true sovereign. It's worrisome, sighed Chu Jianing. The blood sun behind the Blood Fiend Devil Lord was the best indicator that he was the next sovereign. Legend had it that when sovereigns were rising, they had different manifestations, which were supported by the entire world. The Blood Fiend Devil Lord had appeared, but there was no one similar to him on the Martial Heaven continent. This fact made the people panic. Even though Long Chen was powerful, he wasn't supported by the full power of the Martial Heaven continent, so how could he fight the Blood Fiend Devil Lord? Furthermore, the information that Mo Nian had brought back implied that Yi Ming was also undergoing a similar transformation. He might become the second Blood Fiend Devil Lord, and this news pressed heavily on their hearts. Moreover, resentful Death City made Chu Jianing extremely uneasy. What's there to be afraid of? No matter what scheme they have, all we can do is fight to the death. Why worry so much? Said the old man. Chu Jianing glared at the old man. This recklessness was something she was unable to achieve. Long Chen, what do you think? Asked Chu Jianing. Not much. I agree with the old man. All we can do is work hard at improving ourselves. If the martial heaven continent is truly fated to be destroyed, then small figures like us won't be able to stop it. All I can do is risk my life to stop those trying to destroy my family. If I kill one, I go even. If I kill two, I'll have profited, said Long Chen. The old man laughed and nodded. This thinking was to his taste. People were born in the world, so they should live to the fullest while they were still alive. What will come in the end. Did worrying about it bring anything good? Chu Jianying sighed. These two were both unreasonable. If she tried to talk reason with them, her words would only fall on deaf ears. I'm going to leave and discuss this with Li Tianxian first. Sai, I can't be bothered to speak to you too, said Chu Jianying. Alliance head, I suddenly recall that there's something important I need to discuss with you, said Long Chen. What? Asked Chu Jianying, pausing. About that? Ling Shan has most likely brought it up to you. It's to give some joy to the Martial Heaven Alliance at this time. Chu Jianying immediately turned red and cursed, Little bastard, all you think about is nonsense. We have more important things to do. If you keep spouting nonsense, I'll tear up that broken mouth of yours. Chu Jianying ran off, almost fleeing. After that, Long Chen turned to the old man and saw that his expression was complicated. What, are you of the same mind? That doesn't seem to be your style, said Long Chen. The old man sighed and patted his shoulder. Child, I know your heart. Ling Shan has also brought it up to me. Thinking about this life, I owe Jianying a great deal. When I was young, I didn't understand. When I understood, I was already old. I've also decided on it. When the dark era is over, we'll have the grandest wedding ceremony to make up for what I owe her. Long Chen nodded. Old man, I've essentially learned the 9th form of split the heavens, and the finer details are things I have to figure out for myself. Now, I'm thinking of visiting the high priest to see what he is thinking. The old man pondered over this and eventually nodded. Due to the 9-star hegemon body art, Long Chen was unable to use the 9th form of split the heavens in the same way, so it would be better for him to slowly test it for himself. After that, Long Chen left the heaven-splitting battle sect and flew through the endless black clouds on a flying boat. A sharp light then appeared in his eyes. The dark era. There's no longer a day or night. Perhaps there's sunlight right behind the black clouds, but no one knows when the clouds will disperse. No one knows if they'll live to see the sunlight again. The darkness brings despair, but why is it that I like black so much? Long Chen stared at the black clouds, not feeling oppressed by them. Instead, he felt a strange kind of ease. Perhaps your inner heart is already black, said Evil Moon indifferently. Tisich, your dark evil dragon race is the blackest one. Are you trying to praise me? Long Chen curled his lips. Our darkness has a bottom line. I'm not someone who pisses and craps on others. Clearly, you have no bottom line, cursed Evil Moon. It seemed it was recalling how Long Chen had threatened to poop on it to make it lower its head. I don't believe it. My heart is filled with sunlight. I love life, so how could I be such a dark person? Said Long Chen. Why do you like wearing black? Isn't it to conceal your own darkness? If you wore white, your inner darkness would be set off by contrast, and you wouldn't be able to endure it yourself, sneered Evil Moon. Impossible. Have I been affected by you without realizing it? Wondered Long Chen. Dogs hit. Don't blame others for your own crap. I'm the one affected by you. By myself. Well, whatever, I'm not going to argue with you. Just remember, humans have two sides. The you that you see might not be your true self. If you face the sunlight, you will only see the parts of you that are bright. But you don't know that the shadow behind you can cover up the entire world, said Evil Moon. What is that supposed to mean? Asked Long Chen. It seemed that what Evil Moon said had a deeper meaning. Find a way to see yourself clearly, or when you use the 9th form of split the heavens, I'll be overwhelmed by your darkness. Then you will also lose control. You can't just rely on me to control your emotions. You have to control them yourself, warned Evil Moon. All right, I understand. Long Chen nodded. Lately, he had truly been dependent on Evil Moon, Linger, and the heaven-flipping seal. That wasn't a good thing. Aren't you going to the Wine God Palace? Why did you come here? Asked Evil Moon suddenly. A dark world appeared before them. The aura of death filled this place, and the surrounding mountains had long since lost any greenery. This was the entrance to the corrupt god cemetery. Greetings, Senior Apprentice Brother Long Chen. Long Chen had just arrived when disciples of the Martial Heaven Alliance ran over to greet him. Therefore, Long Chen nodded to them. Has there been any activity here? A disciple answered, reporting to Senior Apprentice Brother Long Chen, the other world's aura is constantly infecting the Martial Heaven continent. However, the size of this entrance has not grown. Most likely, it has been suppressed by the laws of the Martial Heaven continent, but there is no way to say for certain, so we are currently paying close attention to it. The gate between Resentful Death City and the Corrupt God Cemetery had been inadvertently opened by Emissary. As a result, the aura of Resentful Death City was entering the Martial Heaven continent through the Corrupt God Cemetery. However, it was unable to spread after reaching a limit of 10,000 miles from the exit, similar to the Yin-Yang world. Hence, that disciples' assumptions were most likely correct. It must be suppressed by the laws of the Martial Heaven continent. Nevertheless, once the aura of Resentful Death City grew to a certain density, it would be able to spread further, and then the resentful spirits inside would be able to enter the Martial Heaven continent freely. At this moment, hair-raising roars occasionally rang out from the other side of the portal. It was like devils howling. Stand guard over this place. I'm going inside to take a look, said Long Chen. Senior Apprentice Brother Long Chen. You can't go inside. The disciple cried out, but Long Chen had entered the portal. It was too late to stop him. When he entered this time, he found that its aura was completely different from before. There was now a trace of life within the aura of death and decay. As soon as he was inside, he saw countless corpses littering the ground. Their bodies and clothes were rotting, and yet their bodies moved when he arrived. They were resentful spirits. The Corrupt Path's people? Long Chen was surprised. These resentful spirits were not the ones that Emissary had seen. These were the Corrupt Path's experts based on their robes. Emissary hadn't seen a single resentful spirit of the Corrupt Path within Resentful Death City. However, all Long Chen saw were those belonging to the Corrupt Path. After that, Long Chen saw burial mounds on the ground that had been recently excavated. These experts must have been buried there previously. The closest one of them attacked Long Chen with a sword, but he was blown back by a palm from Long Chen. Oh! Long Chen was surprised that the resentful spirit survived his attack. Its body was extremely tough. Their bodies were turned into puppets through special methods that allow them to unleash even greater power than when they were alive. Long Chen quickly saw through some clues. After that, he waved his hand, sending out a torrent of lightning. As a result, those resentful spirits wailed, white smoke emitting from their bodies. In just a breath of time, they turned into true corpses. Clapping suddenly rang out, and a figure slowly appeared from within a mass of black qi, looking like a specter in the night. It was Yi Ming. Yi Ming praised, "You are probably the only one to ever be able to control heavenly punishment lightning. Even a sovereign was unable to do such a thing. Admirable. If you really admire me, you'd bring out your real body instead of this clone." "What, are you afraid that I'll slaughter you?" said Long Chen indifferently. This Yi Ming was not his true self. He looked like a reflection within the darkness, and his figure was swaying unsteadily. Yi Ming smiled, nodding. "You are correct. I'm truly afraid of you slaughtering me." "You're so modest?" asked Long Chen, surprised. Yi Ming shook his head. "This isn't modesty but the truth. I don't like it, but I have to admit that my current self is not a match for you. In the star-field divine world, just as I was about to reach unstoppable heights, you still ruined everything. Because of it, I have to admit that you are comparable to a sovereign, as even Yun Tian didn't give me the same sense of danger as you. However, don't forget, I'm the 7th generation corrupt god. I underwent nirvanic rebirth just for today and have waited tens of thousands of years. All the karma has been arranged. Although there have been some unexpected events, it does not affect the final result. The Martial Heaven continent will definitely be destroyed, so all your efforts, all your struggles are useless." You came out to see me just to say these empty words? Long Chen looked at Yi Ming, a sharp light appearing in his eyes. He seemed to be able to see through Yi Ming's heart. I'm telling you this so that you're prepared. Work hard on your cultivation, and don't die to someone else before I come out of seclusion. After all, you are the enemy that I appreciate the most. I hope that you die to my hands. Yi Ming smiled. But what if I want to kill you right now? Long Chen shrugged helplessly. Haha, if you want to die a bit sooner, I won't stop you. At the end of the corrupt god cemetery is resentful Death City. That's my battlefield. If I kill you now, I won't need to worry about someone else getting a head start on me. Yi Ming laughed, vanishing into the darkness. His laughter continued to ring out. At the next second, the resentful spirits in the corrupt god cemetery suddenly parted, leaving a path for him. Long Chen smiled and followed that path, going deeper into the corrupt god cemetery. Are you crazy? Aren't you sending yourself to your death? Demanded Evil Moon. Long Chen responded, through several interactions, I've gotten a deeper understanding of Yi Ming. He's a schemer, so everything he says is a lie to further his goals. He said those things because he wanted to scare me off, but in truth, he doesn't want me to enter. There is definitely some secret in there. How do you know that he didn't predict your line of thought and was baiting you intentionally? There is nothing guaranteed in life. In any case, I trust my vision and intuition. Yi Ming always thinks of himself as clever. His schemes look superior, but they always lack some maturity. As someone who underwent nirvanic rebirth, he has his memories from his last life, and the arrogance from that life has continued in this era as well. That means his character is essentially fixed and will not change. He treats everyone around him like a chess piece, and he has no counselors. If anyone questioned his decisions, he would kill them. Evil Moon, why don't you tell me if you ever listened to the opinions of your subordinates? Said Long Chen. Evil Moon was silent. Back then, he had made decisions by himself, and Yi Ming was the same. Long Chen quickly flew by the countless resentful spirits. They had been buried in the corrupt god cemetery since the ancient era and then had been turned into resentful spirits by the aura of resentful Death City. Nevertheless, they at least possessed a certain level of will as they listened to Yi Ming's orders. Their eyes had long since withered, leaving deep empty eye sockets that stared at Long Chen. If it was anyone else, they would probably be scared off. However, Long Chen charged through them without even looking at them. Just as Emon Yen had said, the coffins here had vanished. When Long Chen reached the channel, he heard countless roars coming from the other side. They were like thunder in his ears. That's definitely from an existence above Nether Passage, and more than one at that. Long Chen, if you go in, you might not be leaving alive, said Evil Moon. Yi Ming might just cut off the path back, trapping them in resentful Death City. It's fine. I'll run if I see something wrong. Long Chen clenched his fists. In his hand was a bronze fragment. This was a fragment of the Eastern Wasteland Bell. Although it was just a fragment, it had absorbed the source chi of the Yi family's counterfeit Eastern Wasteland Bell. With it, no matter what kind of domain Yi Ming tried to set up, Long Chen would be able to break it. This was his trump card for entering this place. The aura of death grew stronger. But when Long Chen reached the end of the passageway, he suddenly laughed. Yi Ming, I just knew you were scheming to scare me off. So there's still a sovereign seal here. From the channel, Long Chen saw a barrier separating resentful Death City and the corrupt god cemetery. He was looking through the sovereign seal. Countless resentful spirits within resentful Death City were roaring at the sovereign seal, but they didn't dare to approach it. When Long Chen got closer, he saw a thick layer of dust on the ground on the other side of the exit. It seemed like the remnants of resentful spirits that had tried to charge through. After that, Long Chen looked up. The barrier had a giant sovereign character embedded in it, looking like it was made of fresh blood. This was a seal made with the blood of a sovereign, something that possessed the power to transcend time and space. Thanks to it, even though the sovereigns were already gone, their work continued to protect the continent. When Long Chen got closer to the sovereign seal, it suddenly lit up and enveloped Long Chen in a beam of light. Space twisted. After that, Long Chen found himself within a strange place where multicolored sunlight flowed all around him. Before he even got a look at his surroundings, he heard a voice from behind him. Black robes? A back turned to all life? How surprising! Long Chen turned around to see a middle-aged man in pure white robes. Just standing there, he seemed to have transcended the mortal world of dust. Everything within the universe seemed to be in his gaze. There was no aura coming from him, but he gave off an unspeakable nobility. At this moment, a questioning look could be seen in his eyes, as if Long Chen was a surprise to him. Long Chen had encountered Sovereign Yunshang, Sovereign Qing Su, and Sovereign Emoli. From experience, he could feel that this person possessed the same noble air. Just his gaze alone was enough to make a person follow him into death. This was the air of a sovereign. Only a sovereign was able to win over all races and lead them to win an unwinnable battle. This was the indescribable charisma of a sovereign that was impossible to resist. Junior Long Chen greets the sovereign. Long Chen hastily bowed. However, before his waist could bend, he was lifted by the man. I cannot accept a bow from the game breaker. If someone has to bow, it should be me to you. The man smiled slightly. Senior must be joking. This little one could not accept a bow from a sovereign, said Long Chen. This was not his humility but his own feelings of reverence for the sovereigns. He really admired the selflessness of the sovereigns. They had used their lives to protect the martial heaven continent. Even though they had died, they had used their own blood to create the sovereign seals and protect this world. Moreover, the sovereigns had never demanded anything from the martial heaven continent, nor had they laid any restrictions on the lives living on the continent. Every time a crisis came, they would rise and stave off complete annihilation. When Long Chen asked himself if he could do the same, his answer was that he couldn't. Protecting the people he liked was fine. But to make him risk his life to protect those he hated or those he didn't care about, that was a joke. Although it did feel a bit like the sovereigns wanted to get along with everyone, it was their selflessness that truly won over Long Chen. You're too humble. The game breaker can accept a bow from everyone in the world. A sovereign is no exception. A so-called sovereign is nothing more than a kind of realm. It's not worth anything. On the other hand, you are an existence born within Calamity. Whether the martial heaven continent lives or dies is in your hands. Your burden is far heavier than ours. Senior, I still haven't heard your name, said Long Chen awkwardly. There were 5 sovereigns that had appeared in the martial heaven continent's history. Long Chen knew of 4 names, Yunshang, Qing Su, Emoli, and Ziyang. But there was a 5th sovereign that he hadn't heard of. He knew that this person had to be the unknown sovereign or sovereign Ziyang, but it would be rude to randomly guess. My apologies. I am Ziyang. You can call me Big Brother Ziyang. Being called sovereign sounds so distant. As expected, this man was Sovereign Ziyang, the 5th-generation sovereign of the martial heaven continent. To be able to pay my respects to Big Brother Ziyang is this junior brother's honor, said Long Chen. Inside, he thought to himself that being able to meet 4 of the 5 sovereigns and even call himself brother to 3 was enough to brag for a lifetime. Come, let's sit and talk. The 2 of them sat cross-legged, and Sovereign Ziyang started off by saying, Do you have any questions? Go ahead and ask. With the descent of the Dark Era, there are fewer things that are taboo to discuss. There's no harm in saying what you think. Long Chen nodded. Then I won't stand on courtesy. I don't understand what kind of existence Resentful Death City is. Why have you and the seniors from that last great battle appeared here? No one on the martial heaven continent understood this. Well, at least the old man and Chu Jianying were both unable to figure it out. If the old man didn't know, then fine, but Chu Jianying was the alliance head of the martial heaven continent and had access to all kinds of unspeakable secrets of the continent. If she didn't have at least a certain amount of knowledge, there was no way she could be in her position. Resentful Death City was the first city that fell in the War of Gods and Devils. It was the most flourishing city on the martial heaven continent during the most glorious time of the continent. There were countless experts, and the path to immortality had yet to be severed. Every year, large numbers of experts would ascend to the immortal world. The martial heaven continent of that time was unimaginably large. The current continent has shrunk to not even 1/10,000th of its original size. Ziyang looked at the void, seemingly lost in his memories. Long Chen almost jumped. The current continent was only 1/10,000th of its original size? That was truly unimaginable. The larger the world, the stronger its laws, and the more abundant its spiritual qi. No wonder everyone said that the current martial heaven continent had declined. With the shrinking of the continent, the density of spiritual qi was probably not even 1,000th of its original density. Sovereign Ziyang continued. The tribulation descended without warning. The first target was the continent's strongest city. Its original name was Immortal Ascension City, indicating it was a step to the immortal realm. Immortal Ascension City was a sacred land in the cultivation world, and the strongest sects of the continent gathered there. When the attackers came, the martial heaven continent's experts fought back with full power. Those qualified to participate in that battle were at least at the early heaven merging realm. Long Chen sucked in a cold gasp of air. The early heaven merging realm was actually cannon fodder in that battle. Just how terrifying was it? The battle started suddenly, and the flames of war quickly spread throughout the continent, throwing the martial heaven continent into unprecedented danger. In that situation, the 5 supreme divine items made an appearance, fighting off the immortal item of the other world, the Heaven Devastating Bracelet. In the end, the Heaven Devastating Bracelet fell beneath the earth, while the leader of the 5 divine items, the Eastern Wasteland Bell, broke apart. The other 4 divine items were also badly damaged. Although in that battle, the experts succeeded in killing the invaders, the martial heaven continent was never able to rise back to its old height. The top experts of that generation were practically all killed in battle. Every sect was badly wounded, and some inheritances were lost. Even secret realms and minor worlds were destroyed. After that, the order of heaven and earth grew unstable, and the laws of the world began to change. Immortal Ascension City was then lost in a space-time crack, becoming the channel linking the martial heaven continent and the death spirit world. The death spirit world? What is that? Long Chen couldn't help asking. This was his first time hearing of it. You've gone to the netherworld, so you know that it is the place where reincarnation starts for the souls of those who die. But the laws of the continent are difficult to comprehend. There are some life forms that do not exist within the reincarnation cycle, the undying race. As for the death spirit world, it belongs to a branch of the undying race. Although they are called undying, all things in this world with form cannot exist in perpetuity. They simply have their own Tao of reincarnation that is different from our laws of life and death. We also know that the life forms within the death spirit world possess their own strange power that is fundamentally different from our cultivation style. No one knows when it started, but then the death spirit world linked up to Immortal Ascension City, turning it into Resentful Death City. After that, all the corpses inside transformed into resentful spirits. When the 5th Dark Era came, the martial heaven continent was full of holes. There were many battlegrounds that forced us to spread all over, and I don't know how many enemies we killed. However, later on I sensed something wrong. All that death chi was being absorbed. When I traced the source, I found Resentful Death City and the terrifying experts that lay within. We then fought against them for 3 days and nights, finally managing to kill them all at the cost of my followers' lives. It can be said that I implicated them. Amongst all the sovereigns, I was the most useless. Sovereign Ziyang sighed sadly. Big brother, you can't say that. Without you, the martial heaven continent would have been destroyed. No one would have been able to do better than you, said Long Chen. The sovereigns were undefeatable existences. Just who had managed to fight against one for 3 days and nights. Sovereign Ziyang looked outside the space that they were in. His gaze seemed to pierce the barrier and see everything within Resentful Death City. The martial heaven continent is in danger of destruction. Whether it was Sovereign Yunshang, Sovereign Qing Su, Sovereign Mo Li, Sovereign Han Wei, or myself, we were relays that passed the problem on to the next generation. In other words, we were only able to prevent the martial heaven continent from being destroyed temporarily and win some time for it. Therefore, all the warriors who fought to the death in the dark eras and us were waiting for the game breaker. Only the Gamebreaker can break this board of definite death, and that person is you, said Sovereign Ziyang profoundly. Me? Long Chen's heart pounded. Impossible. Let alone winning over the various races, I'm surrounded by enemies. If you weren't able to escape this predicament, how can I? Furthermore, I'm truly sorry Big Brother Ziyang, but I cannot risk my life for those people I don't care about. Sovereign Ziyang seemed to be saying that Long Chen was supposed to be the sixth to pick up this burden, and Long Chen was sure that he could not accept such a thing. Whether or not you can do it is something you will learn when the time comes. This is a kind of responsibility in this world that cannot be shirked. Moreover, the burden has been placed in front of you, and you cannot avoid it. Whether people like you or not, whether they sing your praises or curse you for eternity, none of that is worth anything. All karma has gathered on you, and the fate of the Martial Heaven continent changes because of you. You live, the continent lives. You die, the continent dies. Sovereign Ziyang's words were like hammers striking Long Chen's heart. He felt dizzy because a heavy weight just fell upon him. Big Brother Ziyang, as my brother, you wouldn't be conning me, right? I really am not made for that kind of stuff. Long Chen shook his head. What kind of joke was that? How could someone place such a huge responsibility on him? Sovereign Ziyang smiled, yet it also didn't seem to be a smile. To tell the truth, I was originally worried about the fate of the Martial Heaven continent, but now that I've seen you, I suddenly feel like I was worrying for nothing. You are different from all of us. Perhaps that is why you are the crux upon which the world changes, the Gamebreaker. Just from your black robes and how your back faced me, I understood instantly just how marvelous the heavenly Daos are. Big Brother Ziyang, I really am not such a person. Do you know? Sovereign Yunshang has a son that has awoken. I'm planning on fully supporting him. Sovereign Yunshang had a son, exclaimed Ziyang. Yes. I received his help, which allowed me to pass through the tribulation in the star-field divine world. He is a truly marvelous genius. No one can resist him, said Long Chen. Sovereign Ziyang was lost in thought for a while before sighing. As expected of the first generation, none of us can match him. Long Chen was confused. What was so amazing about having descendants? Long Chen didn't know what to say. Sovereign Ziyang explained. Sovereign Yunshang was the head of the 5 sovereigns. His power is something we all respect, and you will come to know just how amazing he was. However, even if Sovereign Yunshang left behind a son, you are still the Gamebreaker. You are the only one who can break this plot of sure death. Seeing that Long Chen was about to argue once more, Sovereign Ziyang waved his hand. You don't need to feel any pressure. Everything will come naturally. I do not have that much time to argue such senseless things. If you have more questions, ask while you have time. Long Chen's heart shook. After that, he thought about it and asked, what do you think about the divine families? I have no opinion worth sharing, said Sovereign Ziyang indifferently. Long Chen stared at him blankly. What was that supposed to mean? If the Martial Heaven continent is to survive the upcoming Dark Era, what is the most important aspect? Asked Long Chen. You. Fine. Long Chen rolled his eyes. He might as well not have asked. Suddenly he asked, Sovereign Ziyang, what is Pill Valley's origin? You should ask yourself. You have deep karma with Pill Valley. The Martial Heaven continent is just a start. As for, Sovereign Ziyang suddenly fell silent. Seemingly calculating something, he shook his head in the end and didn't continue. I wasn't able to obtain any valuable information. Big Brother Ziyang, you're a sovereign. Even you don't dare to say these things? Asked Long Chen. I'm a dead person. If I speak, it won't affect me. But it will bring calamity upon you, said Sovereign Ziyang. You also, Long Chen found this difficult to accept even though he was prepared. Even Sovereign Ziyang was dead? If the Martial Heaven continent were to learn of this, who knew whether people would fall into despair? The legends said that the sovereigns had vanished because they were secretly protecting this world. When the world was in danger once more, the sovereigns would appear to save it again. If news of their death shattered that belief, then would the Martial Heaven continent's experts collapse before the invaders even attacked? The sovereigns were the faith of the entire Martial Heaven continent. When that faith collapsed, it would leave a fatal blow. Now, even Long Chen felt a profound sense of loss. If the 5 sovereigns were still present, perhaps they really would be able to fight off the powerful enemies. But this hope was extinguished. Long Chen, don't look down on yourself. The Martial Heaven continent picked you to be the game breaker, and the 5 of us existed to build a foundation for you. Trust in yourself. You definitely have that ability. We were both chosen by the heavens, and they would not choose poorly. The Martial Heaven continent has entrusted its fate to you. Just as you previously told me, no one else would be able to do better than you in your position, comforted Sovereign Ziyang. How come I've never felt like the heavens chose me? If anything, they're always trying to kill me. In my last tribulation, even Big Brother Mo Li appeared at the end. If he didn't cheat and let me pass, I'd have died to that heavenly tribulation. Long Chen bitterly smiled. You were chosen by the heavens. There is no doubt about this. However, the reason the heavenly Daos are targeting is because the current heavenly Daos are no longer the old heavenly Daos. The heavens are no longer the old heavens, but the earth is still the old earth. The laws of the heavenly Daos have changed. Don't take it to heart. Don't misjudge the world to be targeting you just because of your heavenly tribulation. What is targeting you is something that cannot be spoken with words, said Sovereign Ziyang. Long Chen's heart shook. Then you mean that this world Sovereign Ziyang interrupted, don't say such things out loud. It will be sensed by the heavenly Daos, breeding more variables that will manifest as further tribulations for you. It does more harm than good. I've told you all I can tell you. Is there anything else you need help with? I still have a trace of power left. I can seal it inside your body, and when you encounter an enemy that you cannot beat, it can save your life. Hearing this, Long Chen felt a rush of excitement. If this power was sealed in his body, he would have an unmatched protective talisman. Who knew what he could do with that? However, he then suddenly thought of something. How many of the Martial Heaven continent's experts were turned into resentful spirits inside Resentful Death City? Some warriors did not have time to extinguish their Yuan spirits before dying, and their Yuan spirits tried to protect them, entering a state of quasi-death. Normally, this state would indicate death, and the remnant is only able to weakly pass on some information to their descendants. However, inside Resentful Death City, the aura of the death spirit world will cause the Yuan spirit to undergo a transformation into a death spirit. At that time, many experts sensed this and extinguished their own lives in time, dying completely. However, some fought to the death, wanting to kill as many enemies as possible, resulting in them not extinguishing the flames of their soul in time and becoming resentful spirits. There should be around 15 million resentful death spirits of the human race within Resentful Death City. They were all brave warriors who followed me into battle, said Sovereign Ziyang sadly. Then did the corpses left behind in the battle of gods and devils also become resentful spirits? Asked Long Chen. No. At the time that they died, Resentful Death City had yet to become linked to the death spirit world. Their corpses were buried in the ground, but their leftover resentment is used by the corrupt path to control the resentful spirits, said Sovereign Ziyang. Then is the corrupt path in collusion with the death spirit world? Why did the sovereigns not wipe them out earlier? Asked Long Chen. Sovereign Ziyang shook his head, not directly replying. Why did you ask how many resentful spirits were from the Martial Heaven continent? Seeing that Sovereign Ziyang refused to answer, Long Chen knew that he had once more touched upon a big secret, so he gave up on pressing more information out of Sovereign Ziyang. If you have the ability, I hope to wipe out those resentful spirits so that they can rest in peace. For the corrupt path to control the heroes of the Martial Heaven continent is the greatest insult to them. Furthermore, Yi Ming is very crafty. When the battle starts, he will definitely use them as his trump cards. At that time, how will the Martial Heaven continent's experts fight their ancestors that have been turned into resentful spirits? If they don't attack, they'll be killed. But if they do attack, they will be taking on the name of murderers of their ancestors. That will affect the continent's morale, said Long Chen. This remnant power that I have would be wasted on them. Think it through, said Sovereign Ziyang. He only had a little bit of power that could be used once. It was extremely precious. There's no need to think about it. Hesitating isn't my style. If I want to do something, I do it. I don't want the heroes of the martial heaven continent to suffer any further insult. As for my safety, well, if I couldn't protect my own life myself, how am I supposed to protect those that I care about? Said Long Chen. Sovereign Ziyang smiled. All right, as expected of the game breaker. Although I don't completely approve, I like this character. I respect your choice. After that, the space around them shook, and Long Chen appeared in the void with Sovereign Ziyang. Beneath them was an ancient black city. This was Immortal Ascension City, as well as Resentful Death City. Standing in the void above it, Long Chen could sense just how vast and beautiful it was. Even from their position, they couldn't see the end of the city. At this moment, the resentful spirits shut their mouths when they saw Sovereign Ziyang. They began to tremble. Big Brother Ziyang, if there is a chance, I would like to bring their weapons back with me to return them to their descendants, said Long Chen. Sovereign Ziyang nodded. With a single step, the two of them teleported from the void to inside the city. Long Chen was startled. Sovereign Ziyang's teleportation hadn't unleashed the slightest spatial fluctuation. If the sovereign wanted to kill someone, they could do it in an instant before their target could sense them. A black barrier appeared once they entered the inner city, blocking the two of them. Through it, Long Chen could see countless resentful spirits prostrating themselves toward the central altar. Just as Emon Yen had said, the inner coffins of the corrupt god cemetery were on the altar. At the very center of the altar was Yi Ming staring at Long Chen in shock. Or more accurately, he was staring at Sovereign Ziyang. Yi Ming, didn't you want to fight me? Come, I'll satisfy that desire of yours. I'll beat so much crap out of you that it fills the city. Long Chen rolled up his sleeves, looking at him arrogantly. With Sovereign Ziyang beside him, Long Chen instantly became arrogant. He clasped his hands behind him, looking down on Yi Ming. Yi Ming stared at Sovereign Ziyang in terror. He knew exactly who he was. It was precisely because he knew who Sovereign Ziyang was that he was so terrified. No need to worry, my big brother won't bother with you. Come, let me see what improvements you've made during this time, said Long Chen. He was extremely satisfied by Yi Ming's reaction. You are unable to beat him in this place. Resentful Death City's resentful spirits are under his command, and he has already opened his death spirit eyes. Although he hasn't brought out its full potential yet, it's no problem to control a few heaven-merging resentful spirits. They're extremely powerful, warned Sovereign Ziyang. Long Chen's heart shook. This fellow's eyes were called the Death Spirit Eyes? Was his dark energy specifically cultivated to open his Death Spirit Eyes so that he could control the resentful spirits here? At this moment, Sovereign Ziyang pressed a finger against the powerful barrier, which then shuddered and shattered. This terrifying barrier was as flimsy as a piece of paper in front of a sovereign. Yi Ming's figure sank into the altar, vanishing from sight. He fled. Long Chen was astonished. He felt like Sovereign Ziyang wouldn't bother killing Yi Ming. He would disdain doing so. He went to call reinforcements. Long Chen watched closely. Your future enemy is about to appear, said Sovereign Ziyang. Reinforcements? Long Chen was startled, but before he could react, Black Chi suddenly whirled out of the altar. An aura full of darkness, decay, and death filled the air. Just breathing in this scent could make a person feel like they had aged 1,000 years and grown weak. Therefore, Long Chen hastily blocked the aura outside of his body. Ziyang, I didn't expect to see you again. Hee, but it seems that you're nothing more than a strand of a discarnate soul. What can you possibly do? An icy voice rang out from within the Black Chi, and a figure slowly appeared. It was an old man who looked like a withered corpse. His skin was black, his robes were black, and he was holding a bone cane with a skull on top. The skull was only the size of a fist but had 3 faces, looking like a human skull that had been shrunk. Moreover, bewitching ghost flames flickered inside the eye sockets, and just a glance at those ghost flames made Long Chen almost fall unconscious. With just a glance, the majority of his spiritual strength vanished. Excellent, you were able to escape the soul binds of the 6-eye demon pupils without any help. Your mental energy is very powerful, praised Sovereign Ziyang. Long Chen was unable to feel any joy over this praise. Just who was this terrifying elder? Without initiating any attack, just a look at that skull was enough to exhaust the majority of Long Chen's spiritual strength and almost make him fall unconscious. The difference was as great as heaven and earth. Furthermore, he seemed to recognize Sovereign Ziyang. Could it be that he? Turning back to the strange elder, Sovereign Ziyang smiled slightly. Even if I'm just a discarnate soul, I will not forget the blessing of heaven and earth's nurturing. I still need to do my utmost to repay this debt. I didn't expect that after killing you, the slightest trace of your discarnate soul would escape. Your death spirit race's divine abilities are truly worthy of admiration. As expected, Long Chen's heart pounded. No wonder he was so terrifying. So this was the expert that had fought against Sovereign Ziyang for 3 days and nights back then. The death spirit race can protect their souls even when killed as long as we are in a place with death spiritual chi. Even a broken soul can be reformed and recovered into a Yuan spirit. Although I no longer have a body, I am still alive. As for you, the mighty Sovereign Ziyang, you are only left with a trace of a discarnate soul. You'll quickly vanish from this world, ha! The elder laughed, seemingly rejoicing in his victory. Back then, Sovereign Ziyang had killed him, but he had used the laws of this place to be reborn, while Sovereign Ziyang only had this discarnate soul left. That could definitely be considered a kind of victory. You are working with Yi Ming because you lack a physical body? Did you want to possess him when the time comes? Sneered Long Chen. The elder then turned to Long Chen, tightening Long Chen's nerves instantly. It felt as if all his weaknesses were exposed before him. His soul shuddered, however, this time he was prepared, and he didn't leave any hole in his mental defenses. The elder smiled sinisterly, a dark smile appearing on his withered face. The 6th-generation sovereign? It doesn't look like it. His inner heart is just as dark as ours. He's nothing more than a hypocrite. Is this your successor? It seems that the martial heaven continent has truly declined. Even if it has declined, I'm still more than enough to kill your successor. If we were in the same realm, I'd be able to beat the crap out of you, retorted Long Chen. This old man had managed to provoke him with just a few words. You don't have much patience or eloquence. Let this old man give you a lesson, the elder snorted. His palm suddenly slammed toward Long Chen, and darkness covered the world in an instant. As a result, Long Chen's divine sense was sealed, and he couldn't even sense Sovereign Ziyang's existence. Boom! A loud explosion rang out in Long Chen's ears, but it felt as if it came from a distant world. Long Chen was startled. Within the endless darkness, he felt like he had lost his connection to the rest of the world. He felt like a blind man who had entered a battlefield. You can deceive my senses but not my intuition. Long Chen suddenly slammed a hand forward, and lightning burst out of his palm. In an instant, the darkness around him exploded as the lightning returned light to the world. Long Chen's hand viciously struck the elder's face. As a result, the elder was sent flying. When Long Chen's vision returned, he saw Sovereign Ziyang standing calmly beside 8 giant figures. After that, those 8 figures slowly broke apart, seemingly broken by Sovereign Ziyang. If you want to target him, do it directly. Are you afraid that I would help him? Sovereign Ziyang looked at the elder of the death spirit race and shook his head. The instant the elder had rushed out, Sovereign Ziyang had also attacked. Their clash resulted in the explosion that Long Chen had heard. At the very least, Sovereign Ziyang knew that the elder wouldn't kill Long Chen for various reasons, just like Sovereign Ziyang wouldn't kill Yi Ming. Regretfully, the elder had underestimated Long Chen. His mental domain was unable to seal Long Chen's instincts, and even Sovereign Ziyang hadn't expected this exchange to end in such a way. A behemoth of the death spirit race had been slapped in the face by Long Chen. Sovereign Ziyang felt it to be shocking and comical. Even in his 3 days of fighting against the elder, he had been unable to pull off such an astonishing thing. Courting death. The elder instantly flew into a rage and waved his bone cane. In that instant, Long Chen felt like his eardrums were being torn apart. Wails and shrieks filled the air like a tsunami, and he almost fainted. Boom! Sovereign Ziyang interfered once more. Suddenly, a ray of rainbow light streaked through the air, and a peaceful aura suppressed the shrieks. Although the voices were still present and raging furiously, they were unable to affect Long Chen to the same extent any longer. You actually used the spirit's cry, ghosts weep sound on a member of the junior generation. It seems that you haven't made any improvements after all these years. Sovereign Ziyang shook his head in disappointment. Stupid human race, you're a group of hypocrites. You act so high and mighty, when all you are is a mix of contradictions. You're freaks of right and wrong. Although I was defeated back then, I still refuse to accept that I'm inferior. I will personally destroy the Martial Heaven continent and hunt down your human race to extinction. Cursed the elder furiously. It was as if Sovereign Ziyang's disappointment in him was gravely insulting. After that, his cane lit up, and giant dragons appeared out of the darkness. Those giant dragons unleashed an ancient aura like they were divine beasts that had walked out of legends, causing countless thin cracks to appear in the void as if they were moving through ice. It was as though the world was unable to endure their power. Long Chen looked closely. This is the special power of the Death Spirit race. They can summon life forms from other worlds. These life forms are sometimes bred and raised by them, while some are captured and tamed, a bit similar to the beast tamers of the continent. However, these life forms can freely transform between the state of real and illusory with their death spiritual chi, making them harder to deal with. His original steed was already killed by me, so these life forms were most likely raised by him after that. Their auras are extremely weak. This was weak? Long Chen felt a chill. The power of every one of these black dragons was equivalent to a full-power heaven-merging expert. Time is running out. I cannot show you more of their divine abilities, so I'll kill him again to win you some time. A violet sun rose behind Sovereign Ziyang as he spoke. In that instant, the sovereign might filled the world. You're only a discarnate soul. How can you still use violet sun fills the world? The elder of the death spirit race let out a horrified cry. The violet sun illuminated all of resentful Death City, dyeing everything in its color. All of a sudden, the dark and sinister world became gentle, an aura of tranquility settling over it. The appearance of this violet sun had changed this entire world. Long Chen was also enveloped by its light and felt endless warmth. He could feel the heartbeat of the world and the call of all living things. The thrum of the Daos pulsed in his head. In that instant, he felt like the master of the world. The Tao existed for him. The laws prostrated before him. Everything within heaven and earth could be controlled with just a thought. This is a sovereign's manifestation? Long Chen was completely shocked. Now, he truly understood why sovereigns were undefeatable. Although this place was resentful Death City, it was connected to the Martial Heaven continent. At the same time as resentful Death City's aura poured into the continent's aura also poured into resentful Death City. In Long Chen's mind, the image of the Martial Heaven continent appeared in the violet sun manifestation, and he could then hear the call of the Martial Heaven continent. That feeling was very intimate, like a mother warmly rubbing his face, using her energy to support him. Do you feel it? These are the true heavenly Daos of the Martial Heaven continent, said Sovereign Ziyang. Long Chen nodded. He felt it. It was extremely moving, to the point where he almost wanted to cry. He had always thought that the heavenly Daos wanted him dead, but now he knew that what harmed him was not the real heavenly Daos. From Sovereign Ziyang's manifestation, he felt the warmth and support of the heavenly Daos. These heavenly Daos were like a warm mother, whereas the heavenly Daos that Long Chen usually encountered were an evil stepmother. The difference was immense. Long Chen was feeling this warmth from the heavenly Daos for the first time. Long Chen, there are many unknown things in this world. You have to use your own power to investigate them. But there is one thing that you must remember. No matter what world it is, it cannot be perfect. The best things will always be mixed with the worst things. If you always pursue perfection, you will only be torturing yourself. If you expel all the impurities, there will be nothing left. Don't let the darkness blind your eyes because there will definitely be light behind that darkness. Otherwise, the darkness would not exist. What is a true expert? It is someone who continues to believe that life is beautiful after facing the darkness 99 times, someone who can use their full feelings to embrace this world, said Sovereign Ziyang. Long Chen silently pondered these words. He understood what Sovereign Ziyang was trying to say, but he was unable to do the same. He would never be able to achieve that realm. The sovereigns were existences with the entire chi flow of the martial heaven continent condensed inside them. While the martial heaven continent gave its full power to them, they embraced the continent's people without seeking anything in return. They were sages who did their utmost for the world without asking anything in return. No matter how much scum existed in the martial heaven continent, no matter how much trash there was, the sovereigns didn't move to destroy them. Perhaps it was because the sovereigns stood at a different height, and they could see the light behind the darkness. However, Long Chen was unable to see it. He had never thought of himself as some sage because all he wanted to do was live with dignity. He didn't care if someone else had a light side to them behind their rotten exterior. Even if someone was a perfectly good person, if they wanted to kill him, he would fight to slay them first. This was Long Chen's character that had never changed and would never change. Although he understood the principles behind what Sovereign Ziyan was saying, he was unable to accept them. Sovereign Ziyang simply smiled and patted his shoulder. I'm just saying this in hopes that one day, when you fall into darkness and despair, you don't give up. Work hard to see the light behind the darkness. Perhaps, the light is right behind you. In that instant, Long Chen felt light explode inside his mind. It was as if he had received some enlightenment, and yet he also felt like he hadn't grasped anything at all. After all, Sovereign Ziyang was not such a long-winded person that would waste his precious time on saying useless things. Long Chen knew that he was pointing him to something, but it felt like he was too stupid to entirely understand. It's fine if you don't understand. Understanding isn't much better anyway. Alright, I'm going to make my move. As Sovereign Ziyang stepped forward, dragon roars instantly rang out. After that, 10,000 dragons charged at Sovereign Ziyang at once, and Long Chen covered his ears, his head almost exploding. Because of the pressure of the roars, blood even poured out of his eyes, nose, and ears. Fuck, what is this crap? Long Chen cursed inside. What a ruthless blow to his confidence. He was like an ant in front of these terrifying existences. Without Sovereign Ziyang, he would be instantly crushed. That old fellow fought a sovereign in his peak state for 3 whole days. Of course he's terrifying. A sovereign stands at the peak of that realm, so you're still greatly lacking. You'll understand once you enter the heaven-merging realm, said Evil Moon. Long Chen wiped his eyes, leaving bloodstains on his face. He disdainfully said, "What's so amazing about him? Didn't I still manage to slap him in the face?" Although that was what he said, Long Chen knew that he was just comforting himself. That slap was nothing more than luck because the elder had been focused on Sovereign Ziyang. After a while, Long Chen noticed a figure had stealthily come out of the altar. It was Yi Ming. At some point he had also come out to watch. "Fuck, let's wipe him out right now," said Long Chen. "Don't be delusional. You won't be able to reach him. Just watch," said Evil Moon. The 10,000 dragons had formed a formation attacking and binding Sovereign Ziyang. However, they were completely ignored by Sovereign Ziyang, who moved straight toward the Death Spirit Race Elder. 10,000 dragons slaughter. At this moment, the Death Spirit Race Elder's cane flashed, and the dragons transformed into runes, turning into a giant cyclone around Sovereign Ziyang. Even after all these years, this technique of yours hasn't improved much. Sovereign Ziyang flicked his finger, shooting out a ray of light. Boom. As a result, a tiny hole appeared within the twister, and it was like a balloon popping. The twister then instantly collapsed. "Sorry, I don't have much time. I can't let you display your trump cards." Sovereign Ziyang suddenly slammed his hand forward. After that, the violet sun behind him vanished, and a new rune appeared on his palm. That rune looked like a tiny cauldron. However, when the Death Spirit Race Elder saw that tiny cauldron, his expression completely changed. He clenched his bone cane, and light flowed out to envelop him. A small ray of light then shot out of Sovereign Ziyang's palm. Like a sharp sword, it pierced through the elder's chest, and his body exploded. The violet light sword pierced far into the distance, tearing through space-time. Because of it, Long Chen saw a giant black hole appear within the void. From that hole, he could see a world of darkness with no life. There was only decay. Within it, he saw countless eyes and the faces of countless life forms that he had never seen before. They stared in shock as the light sword passed over them. Sovereign Ziyan's attack had not only killed the elder of the death spirit race, but he had also torn the wall between worlds and given Long Chen a glimpse into the death spirit world. Long Chen gulped. Despite already dying, Sovereign Ziyang still possessed this much power just as a discarnate soul. Then just how powerful was he in his peak? Do you regret it now? Sneered Evil Moon. Just a bit. If I had known, I would have kept this power in reserve. With the power of such an attack, who on the martial heaven continent would dare to touch me? Long Chen truly felt a bit regretful. How could he have known that Sovereign Ziyang's remnant power would be so terrifying? He hadn't even said anything. Such a strong trump card had been wasted just like this. At the center of the altar, Yiming fled once again after he saw this scene. On the other hand, the death spirit race elder was killed, but his cane continued to hang in the air, unleashing ripples. Ziyang, you only have your discarnate soul left. You can't kill me. In just half a year, I will recover, while you have exhausted your final bit of energy. You're the final loser in the end. The elder's voice rang out from the cane. You really are a fool. If you had continued to endure and waited for me to set foot onto the martial heaven continent, then, under the suppression of its laws, you would have had a chance to kill me. Last time you didn't kill me because you didn't understand the secret of the death spirit race's source energy. This time you knew, but you wasted your chance. Tell me, don't you think that you're a fool? Sovereign Ziyang nodded. It truly is a pity. I originally was planning on preserving some energy to help lighten the pressure on him even after killing you. Conveniently, that is also a long-cherished wish of mine. However, he's tough. He doesn't need my power, nor does he want it. Hearing that, Long Chen almost wept. If he had known that the sovereign's power was so terrifying, he wouldn't have wasted it no matter what. What if he encountered such a terrifying expert in the future? Then he would have no tears to cry. However, an act still had to be carried out, so Long Chen glanced at the elder and indifferently said, "You're nothing more than an old ghost. If you dare to step onto the martial heaven continent, I'll make sure that you can't leave. You're domineering enough." Sovereign Ziyang smiled and then extended a hand, shooting rays of light throughout resentful Death City. Explosions rang throughout resentful Death City, and one resentful spirit after another exploded. Those were the human race's experts that had been infected by the aura of this place. At this moment, a cauldron appeared in Sovereign Ziyang's violet sun. After that, specks of light flew out of the exploded resentful spirits and entered the cauldron. Under my name as Ziyang, I order the cycle of reincarnation to allow the souls of those from the martial heaven continent that fought alongside me to return home. Let them pass through the sea of bitterness. Sovereign Ziyang began to chant a sutra. From those specks of light, Long Chen sensed sincere emotions. They were like lost souls returning home. In truth, only a portion of their souls still remained here, controlled by the laws, and now Sovereign Ziyang had broken their physical bodies, allowing their souls to escape the chains. They then returned to the heavenly dais. Although they were already dead, their souls still contained yearning for the martial heaven continent. They longed to go back. Even if they were already dead, they wished for their souls to be buried in the martial heaven continent. Upon seeing this scene, any regret that Long Chen had felt about using up this trump card faded. These souls were his seniors, and they had fought to the death to protect the martial heaven continent. Everyone from the martial heaven continent was in their debt. Without their bloody sacrifice, perhaps the martial heaven continent would already be destroyed. So, to bring peace to these heroes was worth it. Haha, foolish Ziyang, you did this just for this group of trash? The elder of the death spirit race laughed contemptuously. What are you laughing at? Long Chen furiously swung Evil Moon at the cane. Boom. Long Chen was blown back, and his hand was bleeding, but killing intent blazed inside of him. He was just about to summon the 6-star battle armor when Sovereign Ziyang stopped him. Long Chen, don't be impetuous. He is locked within the bone cane. Unless you have one of the 5 supreme divine items, you can't touch him. But he also can't attack anyone either. Old bastard, just wait. Long Chen ground his teeth furiously. He regretted showing his anger, but this elder truly infuriated him. Long Chen rarely admired anyone, but those that he admired were viewed as heroes in his heart. However, this elder was insulting those heroes, calling them trash. Looking at the flames of fury soaring out of Long Chen, Sovereign Ziyang laughed. If it was anyone else, they would only feel fear against such a terrifying existence. But Long Chen felt anger and hatred for him. This was a true fearless expert. Little brat, you dare to say such a thing? When Yi Ming inherits the death spirit energy, he will reach the path to sovereignty on the martial heaven continent. As for you, you will become nothing more than one of the resentful spirits beneath him, ha! Laughed the death spirit race elder. Are you trying to make me laugh to death? Ignoring whether or not he can become sovereign, I'd kill him nonetheless, sneered Long Chen. He's intentionally provoking you, said Sovereign Ziyang, pulling Long Chen out of resentful Death City and back into the Sovereign Seal. I know, but he really is infuriating, said Long Chen. He also knew that the elder was trying to leave a shadow in his heart to make it harder for him to advance. If Long Chen ended up with a heart devil, he would have fallen for his plot. It went without saying that this elder, who had lived for countless years, was a crafty old fox. He instantly saw through Long Chen's weakness, and Long Chen really cooperated with him. With just a test, Long Chen blew up in anger. Sovereign Ziyang shook his head slightly, seemingly speechless toward Long Chen's temper. If he knew the other side was doing it intentionally, why fall for it? He had never seen such a person. Suddenly, space quivered, and tens of thousands of divine items appeared before Long Chen. Some of them were already rusted and broken, and some were stained with blood. The fact that divine items would rust was a testament to how powerful the blood staining them was to be able to corrode even divine items. If they were just rusted, then that was fine. But many of them were broken and essentially scrap metal. Yet Sovereign Ziyang had still brought them back. Their corpses have been turned into that state, so I trust that their descendants wouldn't want to see them in such an insulting state. However, these weapons are a testament to their bravery. I will definitely pass them to their descendants as proof that their ancestors were peerless heroes, said Long Chen solemnly. Sovereign Ziyang said, Little brother, I can't quite understand you. You are different from us, and perhaps that is why we were protectors, but you are the game breaker. I leave the martial heaven continent to you then. Like I said before, when the responsibility comes, you will understand what it means to be duty-bound. Goodbye. After Sovereign Ziyang patted Long Chen's shoulder, he slowly faded along with the aura of a sovereign. The beautiful violet light was then replaced with darkness. As the sovereign seal also faded away, Long Chen was overwhelmed with sadness and frustration. Sovereign Ziyang, a hero of a generation, had also died. He was unable to accept this reality. When the sovereign seal vanished, the endless resentful spirits within resentful Death City were released of the pressure holding them back. They began to roar. Long Chen's heart shuddered. He then ran through the channel back into the corrupt god cemetery and went straight to the martial heaven continent. Looking back at the entrance to the corrupt god cemetery, he felt like it was a dream. He had actually met Sovereign Ziyang. If that news spread, it would shake the continent. However, this secret could not be spoken. What if someone asked what pointers the sovereign gave? What if they asked where the sovereigns were? Was he supposed to say that the sovereigns were already dead and that he was somehow supposed to save the world? Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, are you all right? The disciples immediately shouted in relief when they saw Long Chen return. They had been nervous the entire time, but he really had come back safe and sound. Seeing their concerned expressions, Long Chen couldn't help recalling Sovereign Ziyang's final words. When the responsibility comes, you will understand what it means to be duty-bound. I'm fine. Don't worry, said Long Chen as he patted the shoulder of one warrior. It was just a casual action, but it made that warrior indescribably moved. In his heart, Long Chen was on the same level as a god. After that, Long Chen waved at those warriors and stepped onto his flying boat, flying to a nearby city. Right now, the people living in it looked listless. The old sights of people clamoring on the streets were gone. As the dark era had descended, everyone was anxious, especially the commoners. They didn't have the power to resist whatever came to be, so they could only entrust their hopes to the experts of this world. Coupled with the fact that the sovereign had yet to appear, this was the worst news that made people feel despair. Although the Martial Heaven Alliance was now fully united, with them having the support of the High Priest, Taoist Heavenly Feather, and the elusive Music Immortal Palace's Music Master, they were facing various terrifying danger zones like the Yin-Yang World, Devil Spirit Mountain, and Resentful Death City on their own. As for the Divine Families, the Corrupt Path, the Ancient Family Alliance, Pill Valley, and the Sea Demons, they were enemies with Long Chen. Because of their conflict, the continent was in danger of breaking apart from the inside before any outsiders even came. The experts of the cultivation world, especially those of the Martial Heaven Alliance, had high hopes for Long Chen. Unfortunately, the commoners didn't have that understanding of the cultivation world. All they knew was that the sovereign was the savior of the world, and there were no signs of anyone setting foot on that path. Because of it, while the Martial Heaven Alliance's experts were still active and had some positivity, the commoners were shivering in terror every day. In the city, Long Chen stepped onto the transportation formation, and after several transfers, he appeared in the Grand Xia's capital. What he didn't expect was that here, the city was still as lively as ever. It seemed that people weren't affected at all. "Greetings, great general." When Long Chen appeared, the warriors guarding the transportation formation immediately bowed to him. Long Chen smiled. Back when he had fled to the Grand Xia, the Grand Xia had taken him in. After that, he had been given the title of the National Protector, Great General Long Chen, and had received the emissaries from the Grand Han Ancient Nation. At that time, quite a few interesting things occurred. Now that he thought back to it, he cherished those memories and also found it a bit funny. He, the so-called National Protector, didn't seem to have any actual responsibilities. It seemed that his work in this post hadn't lasted more than a few days. Anyway, the Grand Xia hadn't given him any pay as a soldier either, so it could be considered that both sides were even. After Long Chen greeted those warriors, he set off for the Wine God Palace. However, on his way, he ended up drawing the attention of countless people, especially youngsters. In the Grand Xia, Long Chen was exceptionally well known. What had occurred in the Grand Xia back then had been recorded as stories and legends for the commoners. Therefore, it could be said that Long Chen had managed to push the storytelling profession in the Grand Xia to its peak. Some wine and tea houses even hired storytellers to show how high-class they were. Moreover, portraits of Long Chen were selling very well. As a result, when Long Chen walked through the streets, he drew out countless startled cries. "Excuse me, that's my big brother." Suddenly, a group of people squeezed through the crowd, and a young girl's voice rang out. "Xiaoyu." Long Chen smiled and cried out when he saw his little sister. Long Xiaoyu had grown taller and prettier again. As the guards around Long Xiaoyu parted the crowd, Long Xiaoyu ran over and hugged Long Chen, her face red from emotion. Long Chen also tightly hugged her. "Xiaoyu, when did you become so coarse? If Mom knew of this, she'd definitely scold you." Mrs. Long was a noble with high requirements for her children, especially when it came to manners. Because of it, Long Chen had often been scolded when he hadn't listened to her. Mrs. Long was always worried about him, but the Long family had been suppressed at that time, so she hadn't had that much time to bother with him. Now that her life was stable, she had more than enough time to teach Long Xiaoyu, and that liveliness was something Long Xiaoyu often complained about. You still remember us? You didn't come see us after all this time." Long Xiaoyu wrinkled her nose stubbornly. Long Chen felt a sour feeling. Long Xiaoyu was extremely attached to him, perhaps even more than their parents. Their father, Long Tianshao, was carefree and focused on winemaking, while their mother had extremely high expectations of her, making her feel sullen. Hence, only when she was with Long Chen was she particularly happy and relaxed, because no matter what wrong she did, Long Chen would protect her. Ever since she was young, Long Chen was like her protector god and pride. In the Grand Xia, no matter who spoke of him, they would be filled with worship. However, Long Chen was too busy. Every time he came back, he was only able to stay a few days. Hence, she was always counting the days until he returned. Now that he was back, she was excited but also sad. After that, she didn't know why, but she began to cry. "It's your big brother's fault. I promise you, as long as I have time, I'll definitely come see you," promised Long Chen, wiping away her tears. Long Chen sighed inside. In the cultivation world, people did not have the freedom to do whatever they wanted. That truly was an unbreakable law. Even now that he was a peerless heavenly genius who stood at the peak of the martial path in many people's eyes, even though he was a target that countless people were hoping to reach, he himself knew just how powerless he was. No matter how powerful a person was, they couldn't choose to live the life that they wished. Let alone him, even the sovereigns were the same. Despite their power, didn't they also die? While with Sovereign Ziyang, Long Chen had once noticed that Sovereign Ziyang had wanted to say something, but he hadn't said it in the end. However, based on the look in his eyes, Long Chen guessed that he had wanted to ask about the Beitang family. That was a look that Long Chen recognized. Sovereign Ziyang had given up on that love due to his own bitter struggles. With that as proof, even a sovereign couldn't fulfill their heart's desire. "Big brother, I'm not mad. I know that you're a big hero. My teachers taught me that heroes like you are holding up the world. The reason we can live so worry-free is because heroes like you are holding back the darkness so that we can stand in the light. So I know that you're very busy. I'm not mad. I just really miss you." Long Chen's heart skipped a beat. It was like a bolt of lightning had gone off in his mind. Long Xiaoyu's words echoed the same tones that Sovereign Ziyang had mentioned repeatedly. When you fall into darkness and despair, don't give up. Work hard to see the light behind the darkness. Perhaps, the light is right behind you. Long Xiaoyu had said such words casually, but Sovereign Ziyang would not possibly say such a thing randomly. Perhaps there was some enlightenment to be found. "Big brother, please don't be sad, alright? I won't cry any longer." Long Xiaoyu wiped away her tears, holding them back upon seeing how serious Long Chen's expression was. Long Chen was pulled back into reality by her voice. Seeing her cute appearance, he felt an ache inside. He was not living up to his duty as her big brother. Long Chen kissed her forehead and smiled warmly. "Foolish girl, your big brother is happy whenever he sees you." Long Xiaoyu smiled. Holding her hand, she started skipping to the Wine God Palace. With the guards opening the path, things went very smoothly. After a while, Long Xiaoyu suddenly asked, "Big brother, can you carry me?" Long Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Long Xiaoyu was now as tall as his chest. How could he carry her like a child? "How about I carry you on my back?" Long Chen squatted down, and his sister happily ran behind him and jumped on. "Hee, good thing Mom isn't here, or she'd scold us," giggled Long Xiaoyu. She leaned against his back. Long Chen couldn't help shaking his head. His mother was trying to restrict someone who was so lively. The bigger she grew, the more she would resist. It seemed that he would have to warn his mother that some things were simply part of someone's character, and it was difficult to change. In the end, Long Xiaoyu was not that kind of gentle and refined girl, so having her be a classical refined daughter of a noble family was not realistic. It would only harm their relationship. "Oh, Xiaoyu, you started cultivating?" asked Long Chen, surprised to sense she had reached the tendon transformation realm. "Yes. Mom didn't want me to cultivate, but seeing that others who cultivated were able to fly through the air, I kept begging her. She was finally moved by me and permitted me to start cultivating," said Long Xiaoyu, very pleased. What a way to put it. It seemed more like she had nagged and nagged until even Mrs. Long couldn't handle it. This little girl really had some smarts. "Amazing. When I was your age, I was still at Qi gathering," said Long Chen. In truth, Long Xiaoyu wasn't very talented. One's natural talent was mostly affected by a person's father and mother. The stronger the parents, the stronger the child on average. However, at the same time, the higher the cultivation base, the lower the chances of conceiving a child. Because of this, many experts would end up having children at various realms to protect against both scenarios. One aspect was having stronger descendants, while the other was being young enough. As for Long Tianxiao's bloodline, it was very ordinary. There were no experts who had reached the Xiantian realm amongst their ancestors, resulting in Long Xiaoyu's talent also being ordinary. The reason that Long Xiaoyu was able to so quickly reach her current realm was entirely thanks to the cultivation environment in the Grand Xia's capital. Since you've chosen to cultivate, I'll refine a furnace of pills for you that can rebuild your spirit root and allow you to break through your cultivation limit, said Long Chen. Really? But Mom won't be happy. Long Xiaoyu went from very excited to sad midway through. Why? Mom doesn't want me to get too strong. She would rather I be an ordinary person and stay by her side, said Long Xiaoyu sadly. Long Chen was startled. Long Xiaoyu had a vision that surpassed her age. She had seen through her mother's thoughts. Mrs. Long didn't wish for Long Xiaoyu to be like Long Chen and leave her to roam the world. Mrs. Long was just an ordinary person, and a mother's love was selfish. But there was a price to this selfishness. It might cut off Long Xiaoyu's wings. I'll talk to Mom. It'll be fine. Remember, time is the most miraculous thing. It can change countless things in this world, including people's thoughts. Sometimes people need time to get used to new ideas, understand? Long Chen looked back and gave her a mischievous smile. Long Xiaoyu's eyes brightened and she winked. She actually fully understood his meaning. The brother and sister pair laughed. With this weight lifted, Long Xiaoyu became even livelier. Long Chen began to transmit a technique for slowly convincing Mrs. Long of new ideas. Big brother, you're the best, exclaimed Long Xiaoyu. Long Chen smiled, but that smile was a bit bitter inside. If his mother learned of this, would he be cursed to death? They quickly arrived in front of the Wine God Palace. Everything was the same as before. At this moment, he saw the disciple of the Wine God disciple greeting them. Thinking of how he had conned wine out of the Wine God Palace's disciples the first time he had come here, he felt ashamed but also felt close to this dear place. When he passed by Tu Qianshang's wooden hut, he saw that the fatty was actually at home and busy with something. Hey, fatty, it's been a long time. Your clothes are getting tighter, greeted Long Chen. Tu Qianshang ended up dropping whatever he was fiddling with and furiously turned around. But when he saw Long Chen, he laughed. However, that laugh also quickly changed. Hurry and finish your business. Once you're done, come back and drink some of my new wine. Long Chen smiled. I don't have any business. We can drink right now. Let me have a taste of this peerless wine of yours. Long Chen had long since finished the wine that Tu Qianshang had given him last time. His wine was extremely fierce, and Long Chen was fond of it. Don't joke. That old fellow of the divine families has been waiting 3 days for you. Get over there. Tu Qianshang waved. Long Chen was startled. An old fellow from the divine families? Who was that? In the high priest's home, Long Chen saw a person seated with the high priest, and he was extremely surprised to see that person. Pil Doyan. Long Chen hadn't expected that the old fellow that Tu Qianshang had mentioned was actually the divine family's Pil Doyan. The Pil Doyan smiled. Are you surprised? Long Chen nodded. It truly is surprising. Come sit. The high priest waved at Long Chen to come over. Long Chen then bowed slightly and sat. The high priest and the Pil Doyan represented the martial heaven continent and the divine families, so Long Chen felt a bit uncomfortable. No need to feel restrained. I came over this time with my own mission. But whether or not it is successful has nothing to do with me. I merely need to pass on a few words, said the Pil Doyan. Long Chen nodded. Pil Doyan, I feel great respect for you. But when it comes to the divine families, I really feel bad talking bad about them in front of you two seniors. Ha! The high priest and the Pil Doyan laughed together. This character of Long Chen's was truly direct. Although he hadn't cursed the divine families, it was no different from if he had cursed them. Not at all angry, the Pildoyan said, "Do you know? Because of you, the divine families almost went to war. The Long family almost started fighting the Yi and Zhao families. Not even the Jiang family and Lord Venerate were able to mediate things. In the end, they ended up waking up the Lord Saint who has been in seclusion for countless years." "Oh, there was such a thing?" Long Chen was interested. The Pildoyan explained things from the start. The very day that the divine families retreated, the Yi and Zhao families began to gather their forces. Although the Lord Venerate said that things were to end there, the two families were unwilling to accept it. They said that they would rather be punished than let Long Chen off. However, it was understandable. The Zhao family's sovereign sprout, Zhao Ritian, had been killed, and the Yi family's divine item had been smashed apart. Both families had suffered unprecedented humiliation at the hands of Long Chen. The Yi and Zhao families had even struck the great bell of the divine families and cast a vote on how to handle Long Chen. If the vote passed, the divine families would have to mobilize their full power to slay Long Chen. Based on the divine family's laws, not even the Lord Venerate would be able to stop such a thing. The Long family went all out resisting this, but the Yi and Zhao families fought just as hard to push it forward. As for the Jiang family, around half of them were supporting the vote. After all, Long Chen had disgraced the divine families in front of the people of the divine families and the martial heaven continent. For them, killing Zhao Ritian was not just an insult but also a public provocation of war against the divine families. At that moment, everyone from the divine families had been forced to return to their world when the great bell was struck. It was a summon that included the armies guarding the Yin-Yang world and Devil Spirit Mountain. Hence, all the squads stationed at various locations had to return to the divine families. After that, all the warriors entered combat-ready state. The four families' core forces were all ready to fight. There were a total of 517 people between the four families who were qualified to vote. The final result was that 70% supported the vote and 30% were against it. The entire Long family had voted no, while everyone from the Zhao and Yi families had voted yes. As for the Jiang family, they were originally supporting it, but when Feng Fei voted no, it startled quite a few of their voters. They looked between Feng Fei and Jiang Wuchen. Feng Fei had declared that although she detested Long Chen, the truth was the truth. Long Chen might have been wrong, but Zhao Ritian had also been wrong. On the martial path, life and death were up to fate, and the weak would be washed away by the strong. To put it simply, a person had to be willing to gamble with their life. If someone wanted to kill, they had to be prepared to be killed as well. For Feng Fei, complaining about the results of such a battle was a disgrace to the divine family's dignity. After saying that, Feng Fei left, but her words caused quite a few people from the Jiang family to change their minds and also vote no. However, the final result was still a 70% approval, so it didn't matter. According to the divine family's laws, the Lord Venerate would have to lead the divine family's forces to slaughter Long Chen, even if the divine families had to declare war against the martial heaven continent. At that moment, a voice rang out. All things have to have the big picture taken into consideration. The arrival of that voice caused the Yi and Zhao families' expressions to change. This matter had actually woken the Lord Saint, and he immediately invalidated the result of their vote. Although he had not said that he was directly against it, his meaning was clear. With the current state of the martial heaven continent, with invaders on the verge of attacking, the big picture was what mattered. Hence, with just a word, the Yi and Zhao families' people were suppressed. They didn't dare to go against the Lord Saint's order. On the other hand, the Long family's people were filled with smiles. In this battle, the Long family had come out ahead. However, things were now in an awkward position. Due to the striking of the great bell, the divine family's disciples had all been called back. The problem was whether or not they were supposed to send back their warriors. Some places were easy to do so, but it would be awkward with the Yin-Yang world and Devil Spirit Mountain. The divine family's warriors had silently left, so the martial heaven continent viewed this as a betrayal. Could the divine family's army really go back? They would have to discuss this first. If they wanted to fight off the experts of the other worlds, the divine families alone could not do it, nor could the martial heaven continent's experts. They had to work together. However, splitting apart was easy, but coming back together was hard. Considering that they had been defending such a core area and had left without a word, who would trust them again? The divine families were caught in an awkward position. As a matter of fact, the Lord Venerate had furiously declared that whoever had caused this disaster should fix it themselves. He was naturally infuriated. He had declared that this matter was over, but the Zhao and Yi families refused to let things go. Hence, he no longer cared. However, how could the Zhao and Yi families actually lower their face to apologize to the martial heaven continent? It was impossible. They hadn't made any moves. Clearly, both families were furious and embarrassed. The Zhao family's sovereign sprout had been killed, and the Yi family's precious divine item had been broken, but they didn't win anything back. And now they needed to apologize to others? Even if they were tortured, they wouldn't do it. As a result, this matter continued all the way until now. In the end, even the Lord Venerate hadn't been able to keep watching. He couldn't force them too far. After all, they were also victims. Without any other choice, the Lord Venerate had thickened his face and gone to request aid from the Pildoyan, asking him to come here. And so, he was here. Let me first state my position clearly. I'm only in charge of passing on words. Whatever feelings you have, whatever complaints you have, don't vent them on me. I'm innocent. The Pildoyan raised his hand and laughed. It was only after hearing all this that Long Chen understood just what had gone on with the divine families. But just who was the Lord Saint? Was he really such a terrifying expert? The divine family's rankings were a bit unclear. However, since the Pildoyan had said all this, Long Chen felt a bit bad. He couldn't blame the Pildoyan. But whenever the divine families were mentioned, he was truly pissed off. Pildoyan, I don't feel the slightest negativity when it comes to you, said Long Chen awkwardly. The Pildoyan had truly given him a good feeling. He was an elder worthy of respect. Without the heavenly flame orb, Huolinger wouldn't have transformed. Hence, Long Chen believed that the Pildoyan was completely different from the rest of the divine families. Pildoyan, are you here to say that the divine families wish to join forces with the martial heaven continent against the invaders? No. I'm only in charge of passing on words. The details will have to be discussed by you guys, said the Pildoyan. Discussed by us. As in me and the divine families? Although my guts aren't small, I'm not going to run to the divine families and get myself killed, said Long Chen. 70% of the people with authority in the divine families wanted to kill him, so going there was suicide. He wasn't so foolish. The high priest said, that is why the divine families sent over the Pildoyan. You mean that with the Pildoyan present, the divine families won't dare to touch me? Asked Long Chen. As long as you don't randomly kill people, it will be no problem, promised the Pildoyan. Now Long Chen understood. The divine families were seeking a way out of their awkward position, and it was to look for the Pildoyan who had a certain relationship with the high priest. Perhaps he was the only one in the divine families that the high priest trusted. Due to this, the high priest believed that with the Pildoyan, Long Chen could return to the divine families safely. Theoretically, both sides would be discussing matters equally, and so they should choose a neutral place to discuss things. But by making Long Chen go to the divine families, it made it appear as if he was the weaker party asking for help, giving the divine families face. This was what the divine families wanted. The divine families wanted a way out without losing face, and by going to the divine families, Long Chen would allow outsiders to view this as giving the divine families face. After all, Long Chen had killed Zhao Ritian in front of everyone, and the divine families could not accept this humiliation. By going to the divine families himself, he could resolve this conflict. Long Chen actually didn't want to go. However, it seemed that even the high priest supported this. Was that to say that the high priest also wished to cooperate with the divine families? The high priest looked at Long Chen, but he only laughed. You are the one in charge of the martial heaven continent. Everything is up to you. No matter what decision you make, these old bones of mine will support you. The Pildoyan suddenly stood. I'll go take a look at the high priest's peach blossom forest. That's the only place I haven't gone to in the Wine God Palace. You two can chat. The Pildoyan left, leaving only Long Chen and the High Priest talking. High Priest, to tell the truth, I really detest the divine families. I don't really want to work with them. They aren't reliable, said Long Chen. But deep in your soul, you feel something drawing you to them. Isn't that very contradictory? Said the High Priest profoundly. You have to face what you have to face. Are you getting afraid now that you're on the verge of unraveling this mystery? Said the High Priest. High Priest, how did you know? Asked Long Chen, stunned. The High Priest shook his head. I don't know that much about it, but I do know about the major affair that happened in the divine families those years ago. I have also inadvertently heard your mother mention how you came into her care. At that time, I found it to be far too coincidental. The timing matches perfectly. Long Chen's heart pounded. It seemed that the High Priest knew about his origins. His voice quivered as he asked, High Priest, my biological father and mother, are they still healthy? The High Priest looked at Long Chen kindly. No matter how strong a person is, they still have fatal weak points. Did you grow afraid because you didn't hear what you wanted to hear in the divine families? Long Chen nodded. He truly was afraid. He was afraid that the day he learned the truth would be a day of tragedy, a tragedy that he could not stop or fix. Long Chen had a kind of bad feeling. During his time in the divine families, he hadn't felt any sense of home, nor had he sensed a familiar bloodline aura. According to reason, with the senses of the 9-star hegemon body art, it was impossible for him to not feel anything if his father and mother were in the divine families. However, even after all that time in the divine families, he hadn't found a single clue. His heart sank. He felt fear. He was afraid that the moment things became clear, everything would vanish into smoke and mist. Another reason was because he wasn't strong enough. He didn't want to expose himself too early. Just who could be so cruel as to excavate a baby's spirit root, spirit blood, and spirit bone? Although Long Chen didn't have a child, he imagined that he would go crazy if such a thing happened to his child. It was something that could and would not be forgiven until everyone involved suffered the cruelest death imaginable. However, there did not seem to be such a thing in the divine families. In other words, there was only one possibility. That was the possibility that Long Chen was most afraid of. If things did reveal themselves, then he would not be able to endure. He would take vengeance immediately. However, if he wasn't strong enough, that would be suicide. That was why the current Long Chen felt extremely conflicted. He wanted to know the secrets of his origin, but he was also afraid to know. So Long Chen didn't want to go to the divine families and accidentally expose this secret. Therefore, now that the High Priest mentioned this topic, he instantly tensed. He wished with all his heart that the High Priest could tell him that his biological father and mother were still alive. The High Priest looked at Long Chen. Child, there are many rules in this world that cannot be changed. If a caterpillar wishes to break out of the cocoon and become a butterfly, it must endure the pain of the transformation inside the cocoon. No one can help you. This process is very important. If anyone helps you, you will not be able to experience what you need to experience. If a cocoon is broken for you, when you spread your wings to fly, you will find that your wings are powerless. No expert can walk a smooth path as it cannot create an expert. It is the difficulties on the journey that make an expert, so your hesitation will make you lose those opportunities. Could it be that even at this level, you still believe in luck? If your luck isn't reliable, then rely on your power. Face what you need to face. You can't run from it, so walk toward it boldly. Furthermore, being pessimistic now is a bit too early. That final sentence brought Long Chen endless hope. The High Priest seemed to be vaguely indicating that things weren't as dire as he had imagined. Many thanks, Senior. Long Chen bowed deeply. Although he was a peerless heavenly genius in other people's eyes, Long Chen had his own soft spots. However, these words from the High Priest relieved Long Chen of a heavy weight. It was like a curse had been expelled. His entire body became lighter, and he even felt like the air was clearer. Go. Do what you need to do. These old bones of mine can endure for a while. You don't have less power on your side than others, so don't worry, said the high priest. Long Chen nodded gratefully. With the high priest's full support, he had plenty of confidence. All right. Then 3 days later, I will take a trip to the divine families and see their attitude, said Long Chen. After Long Chen left, the high priest stared at the wine god's statue for a while, seemingly lost in memories. In the end he smiled. A lion of a father cannot have a dog of a son. The divine families really are fools. Even after all that, they didn't learn. Could this all be the cycle of karma? The heavenly Daos really are unfathomable. Long Chen immediately went to see his father and mother after leaving the high priest. His return delighted the two of them. Mrs. Long immediately got to work cooking his favorite foods. Long Chen suddenly recalled his agreement with Tu Qianshang and took advantage of the time before the food was ready to go see him. Fatty, do you have any good wine? You? Long Chen suddenly stared at Tu Qianshang in shock. Long Chen was shocked to find that Tu Qianshang's realm had also reached the peak of Nether Passage. This fatty had already missed his golden cultivation time, but his cultivation base was still crazily rising to the point that it even stunned Long Chen. Hee, you're amazed, right? It's because I broke through a major barrier in my wine Dao. Naturally my realm will also increase. Here, have some of my newest wine. My recent breakthrough has to do with this wine in particular. You're blessed to have a chance to taste it. Other than the high priest, no one else has drunk this wine. Tu Qianshang was extremely proud of this new wine. Even the scars on his face seemed to be blooming. To tell the truth, I really like your wine the best. It's simple, direct, and strong. After drinking it, all other wines taste flavorless. I've long since been craving for more, said Long Chen. Tu Qianshang's wine was incredibly strong. It could not be called fine wine, but after drinking it, a grand feeling would slowly fill his chest. This kind of feeling was something only Tu Qianshang was able to draw out. Here, drink a bowl. Tu Qianshang passed a bowl of wine to Long Chen. It was dark red and roiling, and small bubbles continuously came out. These bubbles even had runes inside of them, making them look particularly strange but also novel. Good wine. The fragrance is completely locked inside, and the wine energy circulates within it in a never-ending cycle. Your realm really has grown. Long Chen looked at the wine and praised Tu Qianshang. Just this simple bowl of wine used the wine Dao to reflect the heavenly Daos. Just what kind of miracle had Tu Qianshang run into to cause his wine Dao to soar to such a height? The wine god palace was truly mysterious. Stop wasting words and drink it, said Tu Qianshang impatiently. Long Chen raised the bowl and drank a mouthful. As a result, as soon as it entered his throat, he felt like it was exploding. Long Chen spat it out. As if prepared, Tu Qianshang easily dodged, and the wine fell to the ground. Sizzling sounds rang out. The bricks in the floor had many small holes burned into them. After that, the very bricks themselves suddenly ignited. Damn fatty, are you conning me? This is not wine, raged Long Chen. Even his voice was hoarse after that. What kind of wine was this? It was more like lava. If it was anyone else, they would probably have lost their life from this mouthful. Stop spouting nonsense. If you keep complaining, you'll ruin the feng shui. Tu Qianshang smiled disdainfully and drank his own mouthful of this wine. His expression didn't even twitch. He was extremely pleased with himself. Long Chen looked at the wine even closer. Looking at the countless bubbles, he realized that this wine's power was related to them. This time, Long Chen drank a small sip. He felt like he was drinking lava as it entered his throat. It was as painful as if he was swallowing millions of needles. When the wine finally reached his stomach, its power burst forth. Long Chen then felt his entire body heat up. He was like a boiled crab. As the fierce wine energy spread, a new wave came. This one was slightly cold. As it flowed through his burning body, an indescribable feeling of refreshment filled him. Good wine. Long Chen couldn't hold back his praise. With this one sip, his pores were fully opened, and his spiritual yuan was stimulated. Even his blood qi was flowing rapidly. With just one sip, he instantly entered a combat-ready state. There was no need for a warm-up. This wine was truly powerful. Haha. Tu Qianshang laughed. Only the high priest had drunk this wine before, not because he had only shown it to the high priest, but because no one else could endure drinking this wine of his. A person had to have a powerful constitution to drink it, or it would be no different from poison. It was lonely being an expert, so the fact that Long Chen could drink this wine delighted Tu Qianshang. He took out a jug of it and poured out 3 more bowls. When Tu Qianshang poured out the 4th bowl, Long Chen hastily said, "This wine is too fierce. I have to eat with my parents soon, so I can't drink too much." Long Chen felt his blood qi surging throughout his body, almost to the point where he couldn't control it. Any more and his aura would burst out and he wouldn't be able to suppress it. If that happened, Long Tianxiao and Mrs. Long wouldn't be able to endure that pressure. After all, this was Long Chen's first time drinking this wine. He didn't have Tu Qianshang's resistance toward it. "Fine. Once you're done, we can drink until we're happy," said Tu Qianshang. Tu Qianshang gave Long Chen 10 full jugs of this wine. These were no ordinary jugs. They contained their own giant spaces and could fit an entire house inside. Every jug weighed 5 tons, and this was all of Tu Qianshang's stock. He gave it all to Long Chen, making even the shameless Long Chen feel too embarrassed to take it all. Tu Qianshang stubbornly said that he could drink it whenever he wanted by making more, so Long Chen should take all of it. Once he got used to it, the two of them could have a real drinking competition. For a peerless winemaker, seeing someone else drink their wine delighted them even more than drinking it themselves. Tu Qianshang was particularly fond of Long Chen because Long Chen was the only one who liked his wine. After that, Long Chen returned home and ate with his family. They talked and laughed happily. At night, Long Chen held Mrs. Long's hand and gently told her about Long Xiaoyu, asking her to give Xiaoyu a bit more space. She shouldn't make Long Xiaoyu feel like she was drowning in a river of love. With this reminder from Long Chen, Mrs. Long also realized that she had been a bit too stubborn by wanting to keep Long Xiaoyu in her hands forever. Mrs. Long was reasonable, but as she spoiled and pampered Long Xiaoyu, she also grew dependent on her. She now realized that Long Xiaoyu was no longer a child. She had grown up. If she loved her, she had to give her freedom. Long Chen then spent 3 days at the Wine God Palace. The Pildoyan left on the 2nd day, most likely to report the results of his mission to the divine families. After 3 days, Long Chen straightened out his emotions and set out to the divine families with a flying boat. However, as soon as he entered through their transportation formation, he was surrounded by countless experts. "Long Chen, how brazen! You dare to come to the divine families." An icy-faced man blocked Long Chen's path. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.